come back to Compton. Huh? You know what time it is.
Consultant, assistant.
Come on.
No, I've been working.
Y'all better clap. Come on now, that's a nice resume. What y'all nervous about?
Thank you. Much appreciated. So yeah, we are here to hear from some scientists. There are many things that have transpired. We've gone through several years with information being censored online, and so it's really great to gather in person. Hey, I see some familiar faces in here. To gather in person to really have these conversations. And tonight we're going to hear from the scientists. But before we bring up the scientists, we are going to bring up our brother Rizza Islam. He's being shy, y'all. Y'all might want to stand up and give him some energy. All right, there you go. I'm gonna turn the mic up.
Oh, y'all better get some more energy than that. Come on. Come on now. You are in the CPT. You in the Wild Wild West today. In an airport hangar. Go ahead, have a seat, everybody, have a seat. Thank you so much for taking out your time to be here. You will receive information that is not going to be censored because this is live and in person. So give yourselves a round of applause for that, because they can't censor this. So when you receive this data tonight, I want you to really think. It may be difficult. It may be hard to realize that, yes, you were lied to. Raise your hand if you already know that by now. Good. Raise your hand if you never trusted a damn word they said in the first place. Already got half the room. Good job. The main thing that you will receive tonight are facts, scientific data, studies, because that's the biggest word they want to use, right? Where are the, say, studies? Where are the, studies. Say it one more time. Studies. We don't like that word for some reason, but that's what they always say. So tonight you will receive all of that and answers to your questions. How many of you came here eager to ask certain questions? Okay. How many of you know someone who is on the autism spectrum? Okay. How many of you know someone who is dealing with some type of reaction and they believe it was as a result of a vaccination? They just believe that's what caused it, okay? How many of you believe that you have received an injury that may be caused by a vaccination ever in your life? Okay. There are a lot of things we're going to go over tonight, again, and when you hear this information, do your best to receive it, as difficult as it may be, because there will be some very hard-hitting evidence. We have people here who have been silenced by the U.S. government, not just on the internet. We have some of those who are here who used to work with and or under Anthony Fauci. Everybody boo Anthony Fauci. Good job. We have those who have worked with the NIH, CDC, NIAID, you name it, and had gag orders placed on them in real life. Threatened with their license being taken away, threatened with their freedom being taken away, family members targeted, data taken, files taken because of what they knew. So, just kind of wanted to warm you up to see where your spirit is, because you're not going to be lied to tonight. But when you receive the truth, just know that's what it is and be willing to accept it, because you also will be given some solutions. Is that okay? Y'all like, whew, thank you, brother, because damn. The biggest thing that we want to really look at are solutions, because we are now in 2025, right? The pandemic started. Well, even that's a different date to that. Some say 2020, some say 2019, and then there are others who say even prior to that. But we are 5 years from when they say it began, and now everything is coming out. So be prepared, be ready. really be ready to answer or ask questions that you need serious answers to. And I don't want you to hold back. See, this is the time where you do not have anybody telling you to shut up. This is the time where your job will not be threatened. Your child's education will not be threatened. Your travel will not be threatened. You will be able to stand up, get on this mic, and ask, Rizza, was I crazy? Did they put this in me? Was it truly safe and, say it one more time, safe and, was it really? And be prepared to receive real answers. Is that okay? You sure? Okay, beautiful. So I'm going to bring up our powerful host. Again, our sister Jade. Give her another round of applause as she comes. Thank you.
I have to lower the mic after every time he speaks because the mic is all the way up here.
My apologies.
I have to bring it back down. Shout out to our brother.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so I have the honor and the privilege and the responsibility of introducing our first scientist of the night, my beloved Dr. Christina Parks.
Yes, sir.
She graduated, Dr. Parks graduated magna cum laude from the University of Wisconsin, and she double majored in biochemistry and molecular biology and chemistry with honors. And she earned her PhD in cellular and molecular biology from the University of Michigan in '99, and she did her graduate research in the field of cytokine signaling.
Oh, yes.
Did I get it right? Oh, yeah. I used to be an English teacher. Okay, so cytokine signaling, which are the molecules that the immune system uses to communicate. And she's going to tell us all about that in the context of these diseases. You all have seen Dr. Christina Parks sounding the alarm and being a fierce warrior out here in these streets, at public hearings and in courthouses and just everywhere. And we're so grateful for her expertise, and she's going to share those gems with us tonight. Without further ado, Dr. Christina Parks. I butchered the words. I'm going to pull up your presentation.
Thanks, ma'am. So I'm here primarily, she's getting her PowerPoint going. And whether you can see it or not, I have a lot of information to share, and I'm going to share that. I consider myself primarily an educator. After I got my PhD, I actually went into the public schools, because I think the way we think about things is really important. So I'm here to educate you, but I'm here also because you've heard that there's no science. I have been studying the science behind vaccine injury for probably 20 to 30 hours, for probably 7 or 8. And I feel like I'm just scratching, because we're trying to get to root causes. And what people want is a paper that says this does this, but the science is complex and you need someone who understands it enough to put the pieces together. So what I'm here to do is to put the pieces together. So you can go ahead and, go to the next slide. Okay, and I don't care if they're crooked, it doesn't matter. But what this shows you is basically, this is a measure of vaccine hesitancy. So this bar on the right is high school or less. So people who have a high school diploma or less know that they don't know everything and they don't trust their government. All right? Then as they get more educated, I think you see in the middle the master's degree, the bachelor's degree, they're the least vaccine hesitant. And I think the reason for this is they know they've put time to become an expert in a field, and so they trust their colleagues. They're like, I wouldn't mislead someone, so this doctor or this scientist, surely they're an expert, they're not going to mislead me. By the time you get to a PhD, you don't have a fucking clue what's going on. They have these little placards. If we knew what we were doing, they wouldn't call it research. Okay? So you start to realize how very little we know. And you get a degree in asking questions. If you're any kind of decent scientist, it's because you ask a good question. And when you start asking questions and realizing how much we don't know, you're like, oh, yeah, wave off, right? And I don't trust my government, because I know they're not giving me straight answers. So PhDs in the biomedical sciences are among the most vaccine hesitant because they have questions that aren't getting answered, okay? Next slide. She's like, I'm still trying to adjust it. All right, so the vaccine schedule, and I don't know if you can show this, but it went from 5 doses in 1962. I remember my vaccines. I was 3 or 4 years old. We had a couple of doses, an MMR, and maybe a DTP, and that was about it. Now it's upwards of 80 doses by the time you're 18. What happened in 1986 is they gave immunity to the vaccine company. And any vaccine that they get on the childhood schedule is free from any liability. So there is this game where they try to get the vaccine on the childhood schedule, like hepatitis B. Why does a newborn on the first day of birth need a vaccine for a sexually transmitted disease? They don't. But as it turns out, drug users and prostitutes don't actually go and get their hepatitis B vaccine. So they're like, we spent all this money making this vaccine, nobody's taking it. Oh, we're going to give it to one-day-old infants with 250 micrograms of neurotoxic aluminum in it. And no one knows better, so, I didn't know anything about vaccines. In fact, I learned about the prototypical cancer-causing virus when I was called SV40, simian virus 40, for monkey virus 40. But I didn't know that it was a contaminant of the polio vaccine. We're not going to get into that story here, but we will talk about animal viruses. Next slide. All right, so I want to talk about the difference between natural immunity and vaccine-induced immunity. Natural immunity trains the body to induce a strong cell-mediated innate response. This is the kind of response kids have. When they get sick, they get a fever for a few hours, and if they're healthy, they get over it. Their immune cells attack the virus, attack the infected cells right away, destroy them, and a lot of times they don't even get very sick, right? It's just over, all right? And so it produces a large pool of many different types of antibodies that all attack the bacteria or the virus or whatever it is. It's a very multifaceted, complex immune response. When I was in graduate school, we were still identifying the different parts, the different receptors of the immune system. So I knew we didn't know what we were doing when we were vaccinating people. Okay? So let's go back one slide. But vaccine-induced immunity actually mistrains the immune system, and it only uses very certain components of it. And I'm going to show some data on why this is really a problem. And so it doesn't produce sterilizing immunity. Some of you saw the video that went viral where I was actually testifying this before the Michigan House, and my point was these vaccines, the COVID vaccine, the flu vaccine, the DTaP vaccine, does not produce sterilizing immunity. If they don't produce sterilizing immunity, if they don't make you, if you can still pass it on, then why are we mandating it? It's basically just a therapeutic, theoretically. All right, moving on. All right, some lesser known benefits of natural immunity. And the first one I'm going to say is that let's say you had natural measles. And when you are a mother and you have natural measles, you actually pass on passive immunity to your children. So your baby actually has antibodies for measles, for chickenpox, for whatever it is. This is why some people still want to have their kids get chickenpox. Because measles, if you got it naturally, actually gives you lifelong immunity. And if you get it at 2 or 3 or 4 years old, when you still have that passive immunity from your mom, then it's actually a really mild case. So best case scenario, you get that passive immunity from your mom, you get it at 3 years old, it's a very mild case, and you have lifelong immunity. But, it's a flyover because they know I'm so great. Thank you. I'm actually a skydiver, so I hear some propellers, I'm like, okay, give me a parachute, I'm out of here. But, so theoretically, if you got natural measles, you could then give passive immunity that would protect your children. But we screwed that up, and that's really important because we know that measles is going around. So what is happening is that now, if you're younger, you have not had measles. Instead, you got an MMR. How many people have had MMR? Right? That's probably every one of you. You are not passing any sort of immunity to your baby. They know that. That vaccine-induced immunity is not enough. Worse than that, that immunity wears off in 10 to 15 years. And then you can get measles. Most people getting measles are adults. The reason they're getting it is because their immunity has worn off. And some of the children who are getting it got vaccinated, but the vaccine didn't take. So what are they actually doing? They're actually recommending that you vaccinate your children at 6 months. Guess what? The measles vaccine doesn't work until your child is 2 years old. So it's a game that they're playing with you to try to make you feel better about it. Because most infants won't actually mount the proper immune response until they're 15 months to 2 years old. That's why they give another one at 4 years old to get all those kids that it didn't take right the first time. Okay? So some of those kids it's not even going to take, and so they're going to be susceptible. But what do you hear on the news? Who's absolutely responsible? It's those anti-vaxxers. It's not the fact that you had the MMR and it wore off. And so what happened is it looked like the measles vaccine was really, really effective because people had 15 to 20 years of immunity, and all the older folks, all those people had measles. They had lifelong immunity. And as those people pass on, we are going to see more and more measles outbreaks because everybody's immunity is going to wear off. And guess what? Boosters just don't work. Now the point is, this is complicated science, and they're trying to give you sound bites. And what we are, and we'll talk about it tomorrow, are let's look at some natural solutions. But let's move on. Let me see if I can find where I'm at. Okay, so this is what I want to talk about. And whether you can see the slides or not, obviously I know the information. What they don't tell you is, did vaccines save us from disease? Let's look at measles. When conditions were very poor, before we had lots of good hygiene, this is measles mortality. So lots of people have always gotten the measles. But how many kids was it killing? So this is per 100,000. Look at this axis. It goes 5, 10, 15. Where was the first measles vaccine licensed? Right here. How many children were dying of measles? 1 per 100,000. Right, they want to act like if we didn't vaccinate that we would have kids dying right and left. 1 per 100,000. Now we know that you can supplement with vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin D, and even cut that. All right? Of course, our kids are so toxic that they may struggle with it again. But is that the fault of the measles or the fact that we've screwed up our children's immune system? And it was the same for things like diphtheria. Next slide, please. And if we look at diseases for which there was no vaccine, like tuberculosis and typhoid fever, as sanitation improved, we see all of these diseases coming down. We don't see typhoid and tuberculosis, except for maybe in AIDS, patients or whatever, because we have better health care, we have better, that's debatable, but we just have better sanitation. Next slide, please. All right, so I want to talk about some different types of vaccines. The first ones I want to talk about are the conjugate vaccines. These are two very serious diseases like meningitis. Now, if there was something that you wanted to vaccinate against, meningitis is a very, very serious disease. The problem is there are many different types of bacteria that actually cause meningitis. So I want to talk about how the conjugate vaccines are made. Turns out if you take some proteins from a bacteria or a virus and inject it into you, your body does zap, zilch, squat, nothing. So they've got to make your body mount an immune response. So they're like, let's put some neurotoxic aluminum in there. I think that would probably help. And so they do that for some of the vaccines, but for others, they say, let's actually bind this protein, this glycoprotein, from a bacteria. And in fact, infants do not like to respond to bacteria very well at all, okay? And let's bind this, it's like a sugar protein that's from the bacteria, to something really toxic, like the tetanus toxin, right? You all have seen the picture of the guy from tetanus. Very, very toxic protein. So let's bind it to that and inject it. All right, and that's why they're called conjugates, because they take the tetanus toxin and they bind it to part of this bacterial glycoprotein. All right, and then that makes it mount much more of an immune response. So the pros are some of these conjugate vaccines are actually able to prevent some life-threatening bacterial meningitis and pneumonia. The cons are the bacteria, once you have a vaccine to it, it just evolves around it. And this is, again, it's real science. It can be effective for a while, but then it stops being effective because basically the bacteria gets new strains. But the lie is that they tell you what's happening is that the disease is mutating around it. They say it's because of the anti-vaxxers. So I just want transparency. Just stop lying about it, right? All right, next slide. So the infant immune system doesn't like to respond to bacteria. So they've convinced us that we need these conjugate vaccines. But in fact, God actually made something to deal with it. The reason that the infant immune system doesn't respond very well to bacteria is because the infant brain needs to be in an anti-inflammatory state for development. Let me repeat that. The infant brain needs to be in an anti-inflammatory state for development to get it right. And if it is inflamed, well, you get symptoms like autism. And so the infant body is designed to sort of not react over inflammatory to bacteria. Well, then how are you going to prevent a bacterial infection? Well, it turns out breast milk has all of these compounds. It has antibodies to bind the bacteria. And in fact, every time you kiss your infant, you actually will make antibodies to whatever bacteria might be in that infant or they might be exposed to and give it to them in their breast milk. So it has tons and tons of antimicrobial compounds in it, and study after study shows that if you breastfeed, the chances that your child is going to get a significant bacterial infection are almost none. So especially if you stay home and they're not in daycare and you breastfeed. They don't tell you that. All right? So God knew the infant immune system needed to be in an anti-inflammatory state, so he made breast milk to do the work of the infant immune system for it while it was dealing with this. Next slide, please. So this is basically showing brain development. And these are all of these little things, these colored things, are different ways that the brain is, different neurons and things that are developing. And so from the time of conception till about 2 or 3 years old is this peak time of development. And so what do we do? What did I say? We don't want to inflame the infant brain. And so what do? We vaccinate here, 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 here. What do all those do? They create extreme inflammation. We've long known that inflammation of the mother while she's pregnant can cause autism. And inflammation of the infant while they are an infant up until 2 years can cause autism. And so why does this happen in adults? Vaccination can cause all kinds of injury in adults, but your brain is not developing. It's mostly done. It can cause brain fog and neurological problems, but we need this brain to develop normally. Next slide, please. So these conjugate vaccines against bacterial meningitis and some of these are really not as effective as they're supposed to be. And I'm just going to move on just in the interest of time. All right, but here's something even more nefarious. I told you that you can take something like the tetanus toxin that's very, very toxic, and you can bind it to one of these bacterial proteins, making this conjugate protein. Well, what they did is they created something like that, but they bound the very toxic tetanus toxin to the protein that sustains a pregnancy, called human chorionic gonadotropin. And what they did is they made a birth control vaccine. And it made your body, when they injected it into you, react to the hormone that sustains a pregnancy, and you would destroy that hormone so that you would not be able to sustain a pregnancy. Then what the whole World Health Organization did is said that they were running a tetanus campaign to prevent basically pregnant women's babies from getting tetanus. And they injected them, and some of them were pregnant, some of them were prior to conception, but they were all like basically childbearing age women. And they ran these campaigns and injected millions of Kenyan women, and they did it at other places around the world too, but this time they got caught. And they injected it with them and sterilized millions of Kenyan women. And there's some evidence, I think, that they did that like right here in LA as well. Okay? And so what happened is, next slide please. This man, I don't think I can see his name, Stephen Karanga called them out, and he actually sent samples and had them analyzed and found out that yes, this is what this was. And there's scientific literature showing the development of this birth control vaccine. And he had it tested, and of course the Kenyan government said he was full of it, and now he's no longer with us. But he stood up, the Catholic Church took him up on it, they had them tested, they stood behind him, and this this movie. It's a very short film, like 20 minutes. It can be found at CHD TV. It's called Infertility, the Diabolical Agenda, and it really tells the story of these heroes in Kenya that stood up and would not back down and told this story, because these stories are happening over and over and over again, and it's only when heroes like this stand up that we ever know what is actually happening. All right, moving on. All right, I want to talk about the toxoid vaccines. This is to diphtheria, tetanus, and pertussis. And these are some of the diseases. We've all seen tetanus, that it can be really bad, right? Your muscles all contract. But how do you get tetanus? You know, it's from like spores that live in manure that you maybe have to step on a nail to get, right? There's absolutely no tetanus below the age of 5, statistically. So, you know, you don't need to give your newborn a tetanus shot. Pertussis, whooping cough, is a very, very serious disease under the age of 6 months. And so many people would want to get this vaccine, but there's some things that you need to know about it. So this is not made to the bacteria. They used to make the DTP vaccine, which is the one we all got, to the bacteria, but it caused so many seizures and actually infant deaths that they took it from us and gave it to those people in Africa. You know, give it to the black people over there. It's fine, right? We're trying to kill them all anyway with this birth control vaccine. So, and I'm going to talk about some data from that. So in the US, they found it was caused such severe adverse reactions that they made a safer vaccine. But the old vaccine was actually made to the whole bacteria, or to the parts of the bacterial cell membrane. That's why it was so reactive in people. And so this version was only made to the toxin. It was made to the toxin that causes you to have whooping cough. If you've ever had whooping cough, I think I got it in college, you're like, and you like can't breathe, and it makes this horrible sound, and those symptoms can be life-threatening in an infant. So they made the vaccine to the toxin. So the baby makes antibodies and neutralizes the toxin. That's great. Nobody wants their baby struggling to breathe, okay, and possibly dying. However, what it doesn't do is prevent transmission of the bacteria and the bacteria from causing an infection. So here's what happens. You've got a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old, and they're going to daycare, and they actually contract the pertussis bacteria, and it colonizes their lungs. But they've had the vaccine, so if they have any symptoms, they're very mild to none. But they bring back that bacteria to their newborn brother or sister and give it to them, and they maybe either haven't been vaccinated or they've only had 1 dose, and they can get critically ill. And then who's blamed? The anti-vaxxers, right? And this is where I just want you to know that they're full of bullshit. Okay? And that we really need to know the science of this, and we need to hold them accountable. And they know this, so they're trying to figure out these problems all while telling you they don't exist. All right? And this is where they divide us instead of us just saying we just want a safer vaccine and we want to know the truth. Okay? Or we want alternatives to how to keep our kids healthy. Moving on. Okay, and this is some of those studies. And this is actually from the study. It says DTP vaccine. So this is the old DTP vaccine. This is the work of Dr. Peter Abbey. So they moved this vaccine to Africa. And this guy was a vaccinologist. This is what he does. He vaccinates kids. And what he found is that this old DTP vaccine that we got as kids, but they're still using in Africa, kills more children from dysregulating their immune system. Basically, it dysregulates their immune system to the point where they can't fight off anything. Next slide. And what they found is in girls, and it's in that very last column in the red, in girls were 12 times more likely to die, girl babies, 12 times more likely to die of all causes. Boys, 9 times more likely to die of all causes. And so this is where vaccine science isn't one or the other. They actually gave them a live virus vaccine, the oral polio vaccine, and it kind of rescued this effect. It kind of retrained the immune system in a proper way. So this is really complex science, and they want you to think it's simple, safe, and effective all the time, all day long. Moving on. Okay, and so again, the bottom line here with whooping cough is basically they did this in baboons, and they found if you had natural whooping cough, you pretty much had lifelong immunity. So when they want grandma to be vaccinated or some adult to be vaccinated, it's like grandma's 70, she's had whooping cough. Okay? And they say you can't hold the baby until you're vaccinated. Well, if you're vaccinated, then you wouldn't know if you had whooping cough. And you could give it to the baby if you still, because sometimes there are new variants. So, but basically, this acellular pertussis vaccine does not prevent colonization and transmission of the pathogen. And they know this is causing a resurgence in whooping cough because it's not preventing the spread, it's just preventing the symptoms. But when it comes around, what do they tell you? Dang anti-vaxxers again. Moving on. Okay, let's keep going. All right, so these are the inactivated. So these are the different types of vaccines, and I have a thing on my website. I have all of this information on there, and I have everything fully cited, and I have a sheet for every single vaccine where I try to tell you as much as possible in layman's terms what the pros and cons are, and all of the different things that you need to consider about that vaccine, okay? And so these inactivated viruses were live viruses grown generally on animal cells until they started finding that all of these animal viruses were getting into the vaccines. And so then they started putting them on human cells and growing them on aborted fetal tissue. All right, so then they actually got human viruses in them that they were spreading, but they thought, well, at least they're just human viruses, okay? And Judy's going to talk some more about that, so I'm not going to get too far into it. So these different types of vaccines, you can't get the illness from the vaccine because it is a dead vaccine, it's not live. But immunity is also short-lived. Now, how many people, when they came out with the COVID vaccine, actually thought that they were going to have some real immunity from that vaccine? Right? Okay, an honest person. I think most people did. It's like a vaccine. You were taught the thing from the measles vaccine, like, I get a vaccine, I'm going to be immune. What they don't tell you is if you want to get a meningitis vaccine for your kid that's going to college, you know, the studies show that that's active for maybe 2 to 7 months. What is the point? You get in the summer, by the time they go to school in the fall and they're, you know, drinking everybody's bottles or whatever, it's not even active anymore. All right, but they played a mind game on you, right? So these wear off really, really, really quickly. The flu vaccine, absolutely ineffective, right? The polio, the inactivated, not the live viral vaccine, the only one available here in the state is the inactivated one, very ineffective. So the immunity is very short-lived. It doesn't activate cellular immunity, and they often contain aluminum, which is a known neurotoxin. All right, moving on. So aluminum. I did not know, I didn't learn anything about vaccines when I actually was in the Department of Immunology, but I knew that some of the stuff coming out was sketchy. And I knew when the CDC said, we haven't seen any evidence that vaccines cause autism, I'm like, oh, they didn't look. I'm very careful about how people word things. So I knew they were full of it, right? So let's talk about aluminum. Aluminum is what they put in there because if they just put these viral proteins in, your body would do nothing for the most part. But what you don't know is how much aluminum is in. So I want to look at the DTaP, which is, again, a vaccine that many people get. There's actually 2 manufacturers, and one has twice as much aluminum in it as the other one. Your doctor ever tell you that? You wonder why one person's kid is a vaccine injured and the other isn't? Because some of these vaccines, one of you might get 1,200 micrograms of aluminum, and your neighbor might only get 700, depending on the manufacturer of those vaccines. All right? And so again, that hepatitis B vaccine given on the first day of birth, 250 micrograms of neurotoxic aluminum, that is more than 10 times more than the safe allowable amount. All right, next slide, please. So again, we are supposed to be basically keeping the infant brain in an anti-inflammatory state while we're pumping it with neurotoxic aluminum. Next slide, please. So they saw these kids regressing into autism after these vaccines. And right about that time, they added the flu vaccine and the DTaP vaccine to pregnant women. There is no way that I don't think that they did this so that these kids were coming out of the womb with autism. They knew that activating the maternal immune system, so there is no pregnant
from it, knowing the address. All you have to do is show up.
You are on the program.
Right. This red line.
And you was not gonna say nothing. You ain't reach out. She wasn't gonna say nothing.
An adult. This blue line.
No, I'm
is amount above which is toxic for an infant. What are these peaks? These are your well child visits. The black is the schedule.
receipt.
For the 100. I'm going to go back and eat.
Only have one aluminum.
Make sure everybody got right.
Do as much as you can to get everything done and get out of there. But what do you
So
notice?
she has a timer.
These kids are
She
completely
wearing-
aluminum toxic. And after every vaccine,
She's still within her time. We started about 45 minutes late.
Yeah, I was just telling her. For
They
Jade
do
to
not
keep.
excrete aluminum until after they are 2 or 3 years old. So it's hiding in their tissues. And we know now, well, I'll go into that in the next slide. So basically, this just shows, and the other slide shows that in a different form. The black is the CDC schedule, a modified schedule, and then one from Dr. Paul Thomas. Next slide. All right, so they've done a lot of work. The best work that we have showing the vaccines cause autism is this work with aluminum. And they've done this, they actually use aluminum to induce autoimmunity in mice. To, like they want to study autoimmune diseases, so they use aluminum to induce it. And your children, so maybe your children are white lab rats, right? So all of these show motor neuron death, learning and memory impairment, social behavior impairment. Does that sound familiar? Muscle strength reduction, movement impairment, compulsive behavior increase. All as a result of the same, like the kind of dose that they would get if they were given a vaccine. That's where they were basically for the mouse or for the rat. Next slide. So this is the best model. There's a lot of science on this, and it's all on my website, that we have that shows pretty much a direct correlation of how these vaccines are cause autism. We have the mechanism. The aluminum adjuvant is injected. The aluminum adjuvant has been shown to travel to the brain. It's actually taken up by the immune cells. It goes to different places. It goes to your different lymph nodes and everything. But then it goes to the brain, especially if you give another vaccine and you activate the body again. MMR, if you have aluminum in your system, there's something that shows that once you have that MMR vaccine, actually activates your immune cells that are carrying this neurotoxic aluminum to go to the brain. So your cells are trying to eat this aluminum because they think it's like a virus or a bacteria or something. Then they have it, they're activated, they go to the brain, especially in males for some reason, and then they dump these inflammatory cytokines all over the brain, cause hyperimmune activation of the brain. These kids' brains are in fire. That's why they're hitting their wall in the head. This isn't neurodiversity. This is torture. Plain and simple. And that is what we label as autism. It is a measure of many different kinds of brain damage and inflammation, pure and simple. Next slide. All right, I want to talk about the live viral vaccines because this impacts our community directly, especially the MMR. Live viral vaccines are they used to be grown on animal cells. And as a result, they ended up with all of these animal viruses in them. But after that, they were grown on fetal tissue, and they still have parts of like the cells of the animals or the cells of the aborted fetuses. And so you might have DNA and cell debris from male cells in a female and female cells in a male. So the pros are these do activate your body in a more natural way. And they induce a multifaceted immune response. You might be getting some DNA and cell debris from animals or, aborted fetuses or whatever. But it can actually give you some long-lasting, like 15 years of immunity. The cons are you can actually get the disease from the vaccine. They're live viruses. They're attenuated, but if your immune system is compromised or whatever, you can get measles from the measles vaccine. In fact, many of the measles cases are vaccine strain measles. All right, so again, don't believe the hype. Moving on. Again, remember, where everyone got measles mortality was exceedingly low. So our question should have been, how can we support people's immune systems? Not how can we make everyone take this vaccine, because if they got measles and recovered, they had lifelong immunity. There are actually other benefits to having measles, but we're not going to get into that. All right, there are a couple things since we are having a measles outbreak that I want to cover. Most people who get the measles in an outbreak are adults whose vaccine immunity has waned. Measles vaccine efficacy wanes after 10 to 20 years. We talked about that. Boosters simply don't work. More people are going to get measles moving forward because those who had lifelong immunity are dying. It's just that simple. Most people with measles during previous outbreaks had vaccine-strain measles. Measles infection should be supported with key nutrients, most notably vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin C. Vaccination lowers immunity for several weeks. And this is the same with COVID. So many people got COVID right after they got their vaccine because getting vaccinated lowers your immunity. And so they should have told those people to go home and isolate. But those people thought they were all good, and then they got COVID right after. But they didn't count those, and they counted them as unvaccinated if they got it right after they got their vaccine. Yeah, they had to be 2 weeks past their second vaccine to be counted as vaccinated. So all those who got the shot and then got COVID, they counted them as unvaccinated. Just so you know. So this is the kind of games they're playing. Okay? And then, again, I talked about vaccination with MMR is unlikely to take in infants less than 15 months especially. So if they're pressuring you to get your 6-month-old, that is probably all risk and no benefit. Next slide. All right, and again, I just want to show this because this is from a scientific study where they say vaccination causes measles-like rash. It causes measles, okay? And then this is talking about febrile convulsions. So this is seizures after vaccinations. What's the rate? 2.3 per 1,000 children per vaccine. Not per wellness visit where you get 8 vaccines, per vaccine. And with this was the MMR plus, they had one with the small chicken pox in it. It was 4 per 100,000. So what I want you to show you here, that's a really high rate that they admit that they're not telling you when you look in the scientific literature. 4 per 1,000. That means, and this is, so every time you go to get one, you're stacking that risk. So eventually something is going to happen. Right? And the conclusion of this study was the use of the MMR plus the chickenpox vaccine all-in-one vaccine increased the risk of seizures in days 5 to 12 following vaccination. So they are admitting this. And they do this in the scientific literature, and then they come to you and tell you it's safe and effective. Next slide. Okay, and again, basically here they say, so here what they did is they actually looked at gene expression, and they said these kids are having seizures after a vaccine. I wonder what's happening. And when they looked at what genes are turned on and off and what's going on in the body, it was genes that showed that there was an overactivation of the immune system. Right, so we have a mechanism here, and the reason I want to show you this is it's not just like, oh, well, maybe who knows? No. We know they're lying. Moving on. Okay, and so in the early 2000s, Congress told the CDC, do the study. Does the MMR cause autism? All these moms are saying it, that their kid regressed. Does the MMR cause autism? And the CDC said, we can't study unvaccinated kids and vaccinated kids because that might show something. Let's study vaccinated and vaccinated kids. That's not likely to show anything. They're like, well, we have to have some difference. Okay, those are vaccinated early and those are vaccinated a little bit later. We're good, right? So they did those that were vaccinated at 15 months or before with MMR, that on time, and those who were vaccinated at 3 years or later, late. And they thought they wouldn't find anything, but they did. They found that black boys who were vaccinated on time were 4 times more likely to be diagnosed with autism. What if they studied them without vaccination and with vaccination on time? What would the odds be then? So they tried to manipulate the data. They changed the criteria. Well, we're not going to accept them if their birth certificate looks like this or if their school records are like that. And they tried to play with it, but they couldn't make it go away. So Julie Gerberding, and this is where it's people. People make choices. Julie Gerberding, who was head of the CDC, called them and said, shred the data. Get out garbage cans and shred the data. We can't make it go away. And they published the study without that data and said the MMR does not cause autism. They published the damn study and said MMR does not cause autism. Don't believe the anti-vaxxers. But we have some heroes. Next slide, please. And this, the hero is not actually Dr. William Thompson, but he did come out as a whistleblower, and this story is covered in the movie Vax, and you can find that at CHD TV as well. But the hero in this story is Dr. Brian Hooker. You see, his son had severe autism. He got shots when they contained both mercury and aluminum and was severely affected. And he FOIA'd Information Act, the CDC, every month for 20 years. And they would actually have emails about him. And he had a case, a vaccine injury case to the U.S. government. And basically, they said, we're not gonna actually give him any money because he's bothering us so much. And somehow through his FOIA, he got that information, so he kept calling. And finally, Dr. William Thompson, who was the lead scientist on the study, and he had kept the results because, of course, he knew it was illegal to shred all this data. Next slide, please, because I want to make sure. And right there at the end where it says 2015, that is Dr. Brian Hooker. Please give some applause for this hero. So Dr. Brian, finally, Dr. William Thompson felt so guilty. Every time he saw an autistic boy, he reached out to Dr. Brian Hooker and said, here's what you need to do to get this data from the government. And he went through all of the different mechanisms, because it's public record. And he got all of the data, and he reanalyzed it, and he saw this data on black boys. And so Dr. Brian Hooker republished, of course it's been retracted, and him and people like Robert Kennedy Jr. tried to get this information to the black community. None of our black leaders were listening. They went to everyone. Finally, Lucy Cole, Michelle Ford, you guys like white soccer moms, right? Said to Rizza, I think one of them was working with him in a tutoring program, and said, hey, you really need to know this data. And Brother Rizza Islam was shocked, disgusted, heartbroken. He brought it to the Nation of Islam. He brought it to Minister Louis Farrakhan, and he was the only black leader to take it seriously. So these pictures were taken in advance of those meetings. And so we don't have to agree with everyone about everything, but these people, Dr. Brian Hooker, an absolute hero. Robert Kennedy Jr. went to all of the black leaders and was here. He stood when no one else would. Brother Rizza Islam made sure to bring this, and as you know, he hasn't stopped. Next slide, please. All right, so there's some interviews. Brother Rizza has this on his Rumble channel. If you haven't, how many people have heard of Rumble? All right, yeah. YouTube is censored, guys. That's why he has to put it on Rumble. And I also have this on my website, which I'll have a QR code in a minute for, and I have a banner which has a QR code. And I have an interview I did with Dr. Brian Hooker. And in my interview, it talks about vaxxed and unvaxxed, and it talks about how much healthier unvaccinated children are. So if you really need one more step in convincing, you want to watch that interview. And then I have the same interview that Brother Rizza did that tells this whole story that I just talked about. Really, this is history that we need to know. Next slide, please. All right, so when this came out, we didn't hear about it. None of us heard about it, but some scientists heard about it, and one of those that heard about it was Dr. Gregory Poland. So in 2010 and 2011, he started looking at ethnic disturbances in response to the MMR vaccine. So this was in response to the CDC study, but nobody knew he was doing the studies. And what did he find? So let's learn a little bit about him. He works at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. He's the chief of the medical journal Vaccine, and he's chair of the Safety Evaluation Committee for the novel investigational vaccine trials being conducted by Merck. So this guy works for Merck, who makes MMR. So he knew what was going on, and he started researching genetic differences in people of African descent. Okay? So this is not an anti-vaxxer. This is a vaccine addict. And what did he find? And I do want to say, he actually developed tinnitus after getting a COVID vaccine, and so now he's becoming more of an advocate for vaccine safety. You think? So what did Dr. Poland find? Significant differences were observed between individuals genetically classified as African American and those classified as Caucasian in response to the MMR vaccine. Black people had a much, much higher immune response. How significant was it? In science, we have something called a p-value. And if it's less than 0.05, that means your data is significant. It's real. It's not just like, well, maybe. Okay? How significant is it? It just has to be less than 0.05. Here's the p-value for that study. We're not the same. Chief Kendrick Lamar. They're not like us. We are not the same. Our immune systems are not the same. Dr. Poland concluded that we needed half to 1/4 of the dose. So did they go and tell everybody and just say, hey, like maybe give it to them after 3, maybe give them half a dose? No. If we had done something in 2002, it's estimated that upwards of 300,000 Black boys would not have autism. 300,000 of our boys. And the thing is, those are the ones that are diagnosed. I can tell you that a lot of these kids have subclinical brain inflammation, brain fog, all kinds of problems that they are dealing with. And I will tell you, I don't have a lot of judgment for people who do pot, who do this. A lot of these people are self-medicating. They are trying to get their immune system back on track or just to manage to get through the day. Next slide. Okay, and I talk about why this is, the real specifics of the genetics, and I also talk about endocrine disruptors. In this page on my website, I talk about susceptibility and issues facing our people specifically. And I'm going to keep adding more to that, because there's not really a lot of other people talking about the real differences and what's going on. Okay, let's just move on. Okay, also with VITA. So this is where I want to really plug my website. It's vi-ta.org, and the last slide should have, we'll keep up the QR code. And what do I have? Like, I have a whole page on this childhood schedule. I have every vaccine. This is public so that you can share with everyone you know. You can bookmark it, and whenever someone's pregnant or wherever, you can send them there. I have
south toward West Alondra Boulevard.
I have a whole hour and 20-minute lecture on the childhood schedule. I talk about the polio vaccine with that. So I go in depth again, so if you forget some of this, you go, what was she saying? I have that whole lecture. It's publicly available. I also have these little, I have on how MMR causes translocation of aluminum to the brain by Dr. Kaylee Dean. So there's all of this, and there's references. You can click and you can actually go to all of the scientific studies if there's something that you're looking for. Next slide. I have the same on the COVID vaccine. So my information on the COVID vaccine, that's where I get 300,000 views, 1 million views, because I'm like breaking it down. So, and again, I have references for everything. Okay, next. I also, if you become a member, this is, you support me in doing this work, it's $13 because I just couldn't charge these mothers of vaccinating their children a whole bunch of money. I just couldn't do it. And so you learn how to detox. You learn what's important. There are downloadable PDFs. There's 50 pages on natural solutions for raising healthy families. This is the barrier I feel like most people can't get over. Well, if I'm not vaccinated, what do I do? What do I do? I need something to do. And this gives you and links to the products and links to everything that you need. And it has links to healthier products, healthier makeup, all of the different things that you need. And so there are also how to test, how to get a genetic test, how to get all of these things, what to say when you go to your doctor, what are the tests they're going to be doing, and how do you know what that means? All of that information is on there. Next slide. So there's a ton of information beyond, and this is our 50 pages of family protocol that tells you what products to get. It even has a product link where you can go and get the link right to the product. And I have a slight detox protocol. And it has intellectual power. So God, because Brother Rizza came out with a spike detox protocol, and we send our prayers up to God, and he came out with a supplement, a brain supplement, and he asked me to look at the science behind it. What do these herbs do? What do the compounds in them do? So at the time I was working with Dr. Robin Rose, who's one of the world leaders in spike detox, and we were looking at these polyphenols that are in these compounds. And when I looked at her work and I looked at the things in his supplement, I said, you don't even know what you have to do that. And I am tomorrow going to spend about 30 minutes going through how intellectual power can act as a spike detox. And all of that is on my website where you become a member, both the protocol of intellectual power and a more advanced protocol for those who are severely injured. All of that is on there. And I really try to bring you the best information in the world, and I'm not kidding. And so if you want to get that centered and people can get the PETA, that's the last one. Oh, yeah, so is there anyone here, I won't make you angry, how many people have heard of intellectual power? Okay. All right. So yeah, I take this every day. After doing the science, I'm like, actually, I was like, after I did it and I found out I was in menopause, they were balancing hormones, things that balance your hormones. I was having hot flashes. I've been doing really well because I'm super healthy. And I was like, yeah, can you send? He's like, well, we actually don't have the bottles. I'm like, just send me the supplement. So he put it in a little thing and he sent it to me, and 7 days later, my hot flashes stopped and never came back. So, great product, and we'll be talking more about that. Thank you.
I feel like we just had like a Harvard, high-level lecture. She broke so many things down, and it's just so grateful to have our people that are able to study and do the research, understand the research, and then bring the solutions back to the people. So we're so really, really grateful for that. So give it up for Dr. Christina Parks one more time. So Dr. Parks is going to come back up, and she is going to introduce the next speaker, who's her colleague.
I asked to do this next introduction, and I'm not going to do a deep scientific introduction, which I could, because this person holds, I would say she's one of the world's leading virologists. So she started out purifying some proteins, but the thing is, she's one of those people that didn't just keep working. She started asking questions, and that made her really a nuisance, and she knows it. And she kept being a nuisance, but the thing is, she kept asking the questions. So this is someone who did her graduate research on HIV, which causes AIDS, or some people think it causes AIDS, some people don't. And then she also worked on Ebola. She also worked on a protein that is absolutely essential to the immune system that could be it's something our body makes naturally that could really basically boost our immune system to the point where we wouldn't need these vaccines, that we could actually silence viruses. So she worked on some of the most important things probably in this century, possibly in history. But all of that isn't what really makes her my hero. Her bulldog tenacity, her integrity, the way that she soldiers on in anything. And I think the thing that I love about Judy the best is the fact that she has no ego whatsoever. You never have to worry she's going to take something the wrong way. You never have to worry she's not going to show up. If she can, she'll be there. If there's something she can do to help, if there's someone that she can give information to, she never stops giving. And it is just such an inspiration. And she's such a hero, and I'm probably one of the very few people that read all of her books for the science. And so during this next segment, I'm going to help interview her and kind of lead you through the science. So please stand for Dr. Judy Mikovits. We could, yeah, and then we can just. Oops, I think I might have turned this off. Can you hear me? Okay. All right, so I'm going to ask her some questions, and I'm going to be perfectly honest. Judy is a much better scientist than I am. simplest way that we can understand, because this is a hero that has information that is just life-changing for everyone. And did any of you see Plandemic? Okay. Yeah. Mickey Willis produced that, and basically that was Dr. Judy Mikovits coming forth saying, you know, this was an engineered virus and some of these other things. And so we're going to talk a lot about this. And so I'm going to interview her, and then you'll get to ask some questions of us and a few other people here as well. All right, so let's move on.
All right.
Yeah, I'm going to be reading off the screen. I can do it without it.
All right.
All right, so I just like to say the real pandemic is the contamination of vaccines with animal viruses, because they were brought on animal cells. The role of animal viruses in human disease, the dysregulation of the immune system by all these vaccines and these gain-of-function viruses, and we're going to also talk about how to silence viruses and how to bring the immune system back into balance. So just kind of, this is what we're going to talk about. All right. Next one. Okay, so Dr. Judy, tell us how you got into virology. What products that are really central to your story were you asked to make, and what were their intended uses?
Well, I was actually making immune therapies. So the first one I ever made was alpha interferon, type 1 interferon. And I made a lot of natural product, immune modulating, but type 1 interferon was on the cover of Time magazine, March 31st, 1980. So that was just before I graduated from the University of Virginia with a degree in biochemistry. You know, they didn't even have a biochemistry program. I'm sorry, I'm old. They didn't just chemistry with a specialization in biology. So I had to study everything. I had to study physics. I had to study plants, mostly just plants, and memorizing phyla. And there were no genetic diseases, by the way. Only one, phenylketonuria, inborn error of metabolism, where you don't metabolize phenylalanine, an essential amino acid, so you just take it out of the food until the kids grow up. So I made these things. I graduated University of Virginia May 18th, 1980. So I then was over at my sister's house in Virginia over the Memorial Day weekend, and when the Washington Post had an ad to go to Fort Detrick and the National Cancer Institute and basically purify interferon, which we waved viruses in front of cows' nose and collected their snot and purified the proteins out of it in various techniques that now are really easy, but then there was no protein chemistry, so then it took a little creativity to understand what to do with that.
And then, what does interferon alpha do in the body, and why is it so important?
Well, interferon alpha is made by a very specific cell called the plasmacytoid dendritic cell. That's a very special cell in the innate immune system, and what it does is 97% of the type 1 interferon is made by that one cell population, and so what it does is it tells the B regulatory cell what kind of antibody to make or how to mature in order to be a mature plasma B cell. So that's all and then a feedback loop of interleukin 10 feeds back to shut it down when you have enough, so that you don't just make random antibodies. You make them specifically according to that antigen sensing presenting cell.
So it sounds like that's really essential to the immune system.
It is very essential. In fact, one of Mickey's friends, there's a new cancer. It's a very rare cancer. It's called plasmacytoid dendritic cell tumor. Oh yeah, it's really important how much they've dysregulated that cell. If you don't have that, you will get lupus. Lupus is just an autoimmunity where you attack your cell. That's key to not having the production of that interferon alpha. You will get chronic fatigue syndrome. So we used to stimulate the cells with poly-IC, inosine and cytosine, just in a row, and just stimulate the cells in order to produce interferons, and in fact, your God-given natural endocannabinoid system is what enhances that. It's a lipid signaling system. These are lipoproteins, not just spike proteins. They're always in the context in these viruses, these vaccines. They're not spike proteins. They're lipoproteins, fats, and
right.
so
they're encapsulated.
and that's a virus. So
is this a potential therapy? Is this something we could like give a little bit of to boost your immune system instead of potentially getting a vaccine or something?
Well, yes, and that's the product we knew as Paximune, but in fact, when we were making that at Fort Detrick, what we knew from God is that all the animal interferons worked on humans if they ingested it or had it in saline. But when we made recombinant interferon, it didn't work in anybody. And no human interferon will work on another human. So you'll actually could develop autoimmunity to that because it's not you. So a lot of what I do and study is because I'm an identical twin. So I appreciate epigenetics in the environment. So basically, when the reason why all of these things are a great big problem is because our own God-given endogenous antivirus, our virome, is on our X chromosome. And so that is all regulatory, and you will respond with the various spikes according to your needs in animals. But, and so we knew this empirically, but we studied, most of my work was with Frank Rossetti, but before that I was a fermentation chemist at the National Cancer Institute right there in Frederick, Maryland. And when Frank Rossetti and Bernie Poise had discovered interleukin-2, Frank Rossetti, and then he and Bernie Poise isolated from a Jamaican man, Frank Robinson, who got a very deadly adult T-cell leukemia, and you could just pull out of the lymph node and put those cells in culture, and they would produce HTLV1, it was called, human T-cell leukemia virus.
So I just want to break this down a little bit. So he found one of the first cytokines, these molecules the immune system signals with, and the body was producing it in response to an infection with leukemia-causing virus.
Correct.
And so this brings up the question of viruses. So we know humans do have viruses, but it looks like some of these viruses are coming from animals. So how do viruses get into vaccines?
Well, we manufacture them, so my job was to transform cells, create cell lines. They're not grown on tissues and things like that. We create cell lines. So first thing I did was cripple the type 1 interferon pathway, and they would...
So they have no antiviral defense.
And therefore they become transformed, and that means cancer cells. So they grow outside of the body, and then you grow them in cow serum. In fact, the word vaccine means vacca is the Latin meaning cow. So you can't call those recombinant things vaccines, because that's the only definition in our 1828 Webster's dictionary. Immunity in that same dictionary means freedom from government tyranny, by the way. So, but that is our founding fathers, so you can't call something a vaccine unless it has cow blood in it. So what I would do every year is whatever was left with my budget, I'm technician Frank's budget, whatever was left with the budget, I would test all the fetal calf, all fetal bovine serum from all the manufacturers around the world, and I would find the one that made cancer faster, and I would make new cell lines to manufacture viral vaccines.
So it's just this hot mess, and then we wonder why we're not right, we're responding weird to things.
Right.
And so her job was to grow.
To transform cells.
Yeah, transform cells and grow them.
Which means cripple the immune mechanisms that keep you from getting cancer. So you see what your government did is they knew the mechanisms that we developed over the 45 years or so we've been doing this.
Yeah, and I want to make this point because I talked about it in my talk before. The simian virus 40 that contaminated the polio vaccine. Simian being monkey virus 40 was the 40th virus they pulled out of the cell line called vero cells, which we're going to get back to. These vero cells were for monkey kidneys because your kidneys lack antiviral defenses. I learned this duty, and I'm probably not getting it all right.
Well, and a lot of all the heavy metals go that you've got to get everything through your kidneys and your bladder. That's why we're seeing all the Maiden Darby canine kidney cells. Kidney cells are the easiest things to transform.
And so we have all of these live viral vaccines that were grown on kidney cells from animals. And so what viruses that we are familiar with do you think were spread by vaccines?
Essentially every one of them. Every virus.
Okay, so here's a slide. You can't see it very well.
So this slide is.
So these are the actual diseases that are caused by, I think, vaccines.
Yeah, these are the diseases. So I listed autoinflammatory disease in cancer, unintended consequences of 3 decades of liability-free vaccines. And that's not exactly true because when all liability was removed from pharma, it was placed on HHS. So every member of HHS is criminally liable right now, and that's why it's good we have Bobby in there now. But all of these red asterisks, prostate cancer, breast cancer, multiple myeloma, I can just keep reading it, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, chronic lymphocytic leukemia, hairy cell leukemia, that's one we cured with interferon, remember, Dr. Aleem, hairy cell leukemia, they look hairy, and we cured that right there in knowing the type 1 interferon. But all in the middle you have Crohn's disease, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, polymyositis, Sjogren's syndrome. All these syndromes you hear about are the inflammatory, and they're going to go either toward a deadly disease here, ALS, multiple sclerosis, but every one of these asterisks is associated with a retrovirus, an animal retrovirus, or the lack of the mechanisms to prevent, like interferon alpha crippled will cause a lot of those things to get into your cells.
So if crippling interferon alpha will cause a disease, then taking it may have therapeutic benefit.
Yeah.
Right. So I want to talk about a couple of viruses you might be familiar with before we move on to a bigger topic. And that is, like, I just learned that RSV was, again, from, it's a monkey virus.
Right. Respiratory syncytial virus.
Where did RSV come from? When I was a kid, you never heard of RSV. Suddenly we have this RSV, and it's really, really serious in infants. Kill them. It's another monkey virus from the vaccine program.
Yes.
They tell you you're going to die without the vaccine when really it's spreading. It has spread all of these different viruses into our population.
Right.
So this is kind of a rhetorical question because I know the answer. But did you work at all with HIV? Let's talk about it.
Well, what we did was we actually isolated LAV, lymphadenopathy virus, from a man with gay-related immune deficiency, from a lot of men with gay-related immune deficiency, and largely the French cohort, and we got the exact same virus from, and it was called lymphadenopathy virus. Again, you pull it out of the lymph node. It's, they're not in your blood until you're near dead. Although from that French-Canadian Airlines steward, I collected it right out of his saliva. But then it was during the Clinton era there. So, by the way, the condom doesn't work any better than the mask unless you consider that that's the way they wanted to spread the disease around. But it's true. The latex in the
pregnancy, but not
the latex in the condom, yes, and it spreads the disease. The masks cause the disease because you become hypoxic. and you're not sensing your nutrients appropriately. So yes, I worked with, but it wasn't HIV. And so it wasn't HIV, it was LAV, but we knew that, so Frank Rossetti was out of town one time in 1983, right after I started working for him, and I answered the phone, and it was Bruce Chabner and Bob Gallo and Tony Fauci on the phone, and they're like, we understand you have a paper coming out confirming Luc Montagnier's isolation of HIV, and I said, yes, sir, we do. And they said, give it to us. Can't do that, not an author. And they just kept saying, give it to us. And what they really wanted, I learned only after pandemic, and I'll tell you in a minute. So they just kept, and finally they started yelling at me through the phone, you give us that virus or we'll have you fired. And I said, oh, go fuck yourself. And I slammed down the phone, and I walked out into the lunchroom. I slammed down the phone, and I walked out in the lunchroom. And there were a couple technicians sitting there, older guys, and they're like, you have no idea who you're talking to. And I said, oh, nobody talks to me like that. My mom taught me nobody talks to me like that. But then I just lost my job. Because, by the way, what I was asked to do in 1982 was to manufacture that HTLV1 in a 55-gallon, which is about 200-liter fermenter, to make a batch of paste of virus, to purify the paste of the virus with the cell debris, and in an open-air centrifuge at Fort Detrick in Frederick, Maryland. And of course, we said, no, it's unethical. We were 22, 23 years old, and that several of the women were even pregnant, and as was my boss, who was 30, his wife was pregnant. So Gallo and company, it was Gallo more than Fauci, by the way. Fauci didn't get the NIAID job until they succeeded at weaponizing LAV into HIV and injecting it in every hepatitis B vaccine. So you see, we wrote letters to the Washington Post. We said there's no safety. This is a deadly virus. We don't know anything about it. A K centrifuge is an aerosolizing open air centrifuge, and you would have put it all around, just like, say, someplace like Wuhan. You would just release it into the air and see who you could get sick. We wrote letters to the Washington Post, and didn't realize that would cost us our job. But we got it done. We slept in the field all night long. We did it after hours. We went out and just made sure we kept it clean. We didn't go anywhere near there so it wouldn't transmit to the human, and viruses don't float through the air. They need a living being to do that. Well, I lost the job because Ronald Reagan, reducing the size of the federal government, riffed a lot of employees. So lest you think this hasn't happened before, reduction in force. So they said they didn't need a protein chemist anymore. I was the only one in the country, I think. And I ended up working for Frank Rossetti. It's a funny story, really. So I slammed back in that room after cussing out. Frank comes back from the business trip, and he's like, Mikovits, get in my office. And I'm like, okay. So I go in there, and I try to just, pretend like he's not going to fire me. But so he's like, and he'd just come back from Bob Gallo and down at the office, so he was in trouble because I wouldn't give him the paper. But what they wanted was the isolate. And Frank Rossetti told him, before I give you that isolate, I'll flush it down the toilet. But Luc Montagnier sent a postdoc, and they stole it anyway. They created it anyway after the fact. So you see, we know all of this, and it actually is so funny. So he said, did you do A, B, and C? And I said, yes, sir. Did you tell them what they could do to themselves? And he said, you did that for me? And I said, no, asshole. I did it because it was the right thing to do. And at that point, I stomped back into the biosafety level 3 because it was much safer with HIV than it was with him. And so he comes back and it was like, okay, and I'm like, I'm sick of this stuff. People are dying. What the, So from that day on, you could not separate Frank Rossetti from me. We would do anything. And I just want to tell you, watch the movie Protocol 7, because the lab rats were us. And we tricked them, and so the last chapter of Plague of Corruption, which Bobby Kennedy saw, he finally understood a talk that I gave. I'm getting better, I hope. But he read the last chapter, which was The Dead Man's Trigger, thanks to Mickey Willis. We added it at the end of the book, which is also something very funny. And so I said, I know you're busy, Bobby, just read the last chapter. And then he saw the whole thing. But you see how God works is because they'd already stolen Plague of Corruption off the internet. I started writing it in 2014 when I met Brian Hooker. And I'm like, the notebooks in William Thompson's handwriting. What are we going to do about the problem with the blacks? What problem with the blacks? So, I mean, the guilt, this doesn't have anything to do with science. But, I didn't lose that job that day. And I ended up looking at the microscope. Candace Pert, Frank Rossetti, Luc Montagnier, Bruce Lipton. I mean, we were all there. And they got arrogant and stupid and left us alone. And we discovered everything. Candace Pert, endorphins, and she would chase her husband around the lab trying to get the cytokine storm of orgasm. And Frank's like, I wonder why nobody ever chases me. And I'm like, Frank, don't go there. So we had a lot of fun, but we tricked them. So we kept him. So the last chapter of Plague of Corruption, so the last thing he told me was he'd flush it down the toilet. Well, after May 4th, 2020, when Plandemic came out, I had to leave Carlsbad and close the company because they threatened everybody. Mickey had to leave. But I said, we were walking on the beach because we never took phones or anything anywhere. We just talked with paper and pencils so nobody could ever get our work. So I said, Frank, was anything I said in the movie Plandemic wrong? And he just shook his head really slowly and said, no, I just wish you hadn't said it. And he said, but Luke and I have a little problem, Luc Montagnier. And the little problem was the isolate. He didn't throw away the isolate. The isolate was in the freezer, and I knew exactly where it was. And Bobby has it too. Bobby has absolutely everything. We saved everything in all the freezers, and all nobody knows other than That's okay, you can say it. You don't know where the freezers are. Oh, we played the shell game of our life. As the fires were going through the Pacific Palisades, it's like, okay, does Max have it? Does Frank have it? Which shell was it under? Well, all of it. I mean, all of it. All the cures, all the antibodies, all this stuff. Stop all the shots, never get another shot. We've got everything to heal and cure you. And now we've got our interferons back and the ingenuity and the ability to make things like the supplement here and think about these pathways and truly nutrify. We understand those sensors now. So
the thing is, we have to educate the other scientists too.
Well, no, we just
those of us
let them get shot.
So we're running out of time, but
Okay.
before we get to the question and answer,
All right.
I want to ask about Ebola because this is really interesting to me. Most Ebola outbreaks is a hemorrhagic fever, which means you bleed out of all your orifices. And some of us think that the government's going to weaponize it just to scare us and like either
They already did.
either actually release it in the U.S. or like pretend to scare people or whatever. And so usually only a few hundred to maybe a few thousand people would get it, but then I believe in 2014 it was a much larger outbreak. So what did you think was going on with the smaller outbreaks and with the larger outbreaks? And I know you worked on Ebola. First first of all, what did you do with Ebola? What was your job?
My job was to make a cell line that would grow Ebola without bleeding out and leaking out. So I just got that cytokine storm, and then Ebola Zaire is a deadly one, but there are many strains. There's Ebola Reston, and I say the only bat cave in Reston, Virginia, is the CIA. But it was a non-pathogenic because you pull the immunogenic part of the spike protein away. So all I did was make the cell line, take that Vero monkey kidney cell line, and the clone is called Vero E6. So there was a 96 well plate, and I got the E and 6 down, and that cell, and I just kept feeding it growth factors.
So were you trying to
I was trying to
infect humans?
No, I just grew the cell line that would grow the virus, because you can't study the virus because it just blow up cells and they'd leak. So I did that in 1994. So Ebola was released in 2014 to cover up the movie Vaxxed you saw back there. The book is called Called for Life by Dr. Kent and Amber Brantley, and the head of that medical missionary team just happened to be the head of the doctor at Ventura and in our church. And all we did, listen to the book, listen to it on audio. It's fabulous because we cured Ebola. You know, and remember, and he was brave too, and that nurse that said, you're not quarantining me. So, and I'm actually immune to Ebola. Every now and again I have an outbreak, and it's not pretty, but in my own lungs start bleeding. Because I'm immune, so I just have to deal with that immunity. So that 2014 Ebola Zaire outbreak, killing 21,000 Liberians, was deliberate by your government to cover up the confession of William Thompson in the movie Vax. Oh, and now NPR's gone, right? Because NPR put the mask on it right then. Oh, measles virus goes 6 feet, but bigger viruses just drop right down. And they showed you the whole game plan of what they were going to do in pandemic, and they just didn't think we Christians, good people, godly people would stand for each other and get in there and fight, and we did.
I want to ask a couple more questions.
So we made the cell line to make the virus.
Okay, with Ebola, do you think they had one that was spread respiratorily in 2014?
No, they couldn't. They couldn't do it respiratorily. That's why the SARS-CoV-2 was made in 2004, but it didn't do much either because the SIV wasn't as good as HIV. So they changed a few things in the spike protein to add that coronavirus aspect. Because SARS-CoV-2 is not a coronavirus, it's a retrovirus, and it was injected in every polio vaccine since 2004, and every vaccine using the Vero monkey kidney cell line. So when Bobby Kennedy says, I'm not against all polio vaccine, if he simply destroys every bit of the Vero monkey, it carries Ebola. You're injecting people with Ebola, with the virus, with the sequence, the code to make Ebola in every single polio vaccine, as well as SARS-CoV-2. But again, all you have to do is take away that one cell line, just get rid of it, and you've taken away 50% of the chronic diseases. I've got all of them, and I'm still here, and I'm 67. Sometimes I lose my voice. I worked with all of them, so I'm immune. Yeah, I'm immune from diphtheria because my grandmother survived it in 1900. You're immune from your grandmother. You need nothing, folks. Never another shot. We don't even have to go over it. Just nutrition. And what's the problem there? All of our food is GMO. And our cows are heavily vaccinated and poisoned. And our chickens, of course, we know that what they're doing. The MMR5 and 2, by the way, have bird flu. Avian and equine viruses in those shots. So we're working at the supervisory level to say, take those shots away, because that's how you're getting pneumonia.
Okay, so at this point, I think we're going to move to the next section, because we've
Stay
already
right there.
time. And so I'm going to give it to Brother Rizza, because I know we have some other practitioners that we want to bring up.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Stay right there, Judy, stay right there. Y'all better stand up. Come on now, listen. Come on. on. When people risk their life to tell the truth, that should be applauded and protected. Is that right? Is that right? Judy, thank you for being courageous. Oh, no, absolutely. No, stay right there if you don't mind. So we're going to go into the panel question, the Q&A. So this is a part where all of you have been waiting to ask your questions to these scientists. And I'm also going to introduce another individual who's going to come up on our panel because this is, I mean, that was heavy, right? That was heavy. So that was very heavy information, and it's going to get heavier, but we're going to go into solutions as well. So did all of you get that so far? As best as you could, because it gets real science-y. All right? And Ebola, intentional. HIV, she went down the list of them. And the biggest thing she said was, you do not need any more vaccine. You do not need that. This is someone who worked for the U.S. government dealing with Anthony Fauci and all that. And I have a question. So I'm going to ask the first question, but let me bring up our other panelists before I do that, because this is another person who was targeted by the U.S. government. So the FBI took all y'all pictures in here, so that's it. We all family now. You're like, damn, he's serious? I'm very serious. I'm so serious, really. Welcome. All right, so I'm going to bring up another panelist here. And this individual here is a very courageous brother who has done so much work in the area of medicine, and in particularly now in the area of nutritional medicine, as well as surgery. This is none other than the one and only Dr. Aleem Muhammad. Give him a round of applause as he comes. He is another one of our panelists. If you don't know this man, you will find out. He's the former Minister of Health for the Nation of Islam. He has done a lot of work, as I said, in the area of medicine, lots and lots of it. So please feel free to ask questions to any of these panelists. We have one more who will be coming up, but I'm going to start just to warm this up. And for those of you who have questions, if you can make it to this side, I'd like you to line up over here, right on this end here, so that you can ask your questions. As I said, don't hold back, y'all. This is the time where you will not be blocked, you will not be censored, you will not be called crazy, you will not be called ugly, stupid, dumb, none of that. You will be able to ask real questions and receive real answers. So please do not be shy. Please make your way over here. So first question, Dr. Judy. Were you arrested or given a gag order by the U.S. government as a result of the data and information you knew?
I was kidnapped, held in jail, all that information attempted to get, and yes, I was basically house arrest for 4 years for that time that they said I stole intellectual property, which was worth $10 million. At least stealing your own brain is worth something. But yes, I wasn't arrested though. I was kidnapped and held in jail by actors in police uniform in Ventura, and the sheriffs knew it, and to this day have done nothing. So when we talk about due process, folks, nothing.
Did y'all hear that? This is very real. She has lived through it.
Finding mouse virus that causes prostate cancer.
Now wait a minute. Why? What specific data?
A mouse virus. They were finding it being a virus, but when they found it was a mouse virus, and it was very obvious that it was coming from these cell lines, and it was from lab work, then it wasn't okay anymore. That was the problem, and then it causes prostate hyperplasia and cancer. So do any of your doctors say, hey, you got prostate problems? Oh, are you taking an antiviral for that? Because you might have a retrovirus in your prostate. Anybody's doctor?
One brother here raised his hand.
Yeah. Like, I know. I read the book.
So now, when Dr. Judy's gag order was lifted, the first person to interview her was your brother. You remember that? In front of the CDC. I said, Judy, let's pull up. She said, okay, Rizza. I have the old footage right here. It was raining, yes it was. But I said we have to get this because she was then finally able to reveal, and in that 9-minute video, she poured out everything from Zika to Ebola to AIDS to everything. She mentioned the Magic Johnson paper research that came out as a result of her research and study. She mentioned all this, talked about how it was intentional. She was helping to grow the cell lines, the entire viral circumstance. She knew about it, it was intentional. So I'm just letting y'all know how far back this work goes and how real it is and how intentional it is. So, first question from the audience. That was a warm-up question, y'all, so we're about to get real. Go ahead, Jeff.
My name is Jeff Brown, and a question that runs along the lines of around didn't take time as opposed to those who didn't always tweet. What are the symptoms? What can we do to protect ourselves, and what can we do?
Very good question.
I'll start. I'm sure you may want to weigh in on this. One is, this is transmitted to everyone. The vaccines are contaminated with these plasmids that will transmit to the bacteria in the intestines of everyone. Yes, it's transmitted through sex. These were never, even if you were close to some of those vaccines, some of those vaccine particles were going to get in through your sweat, through your breath. So they knew that this was going to be a certain amount of passive vaccination. Is that it's not as bad as if you had it injected in you, for sure, for your body plant. But it's very real, and I don't have time for it now, but I'm going to be going over a portion of Spike's protocol tomorrow, and there is one on my website, there's a QR code there. Once you join, there's wellness protocols and then Spike protocols. There are different, but that is going to be really central to them.
Thank you for your question and for the answer. By the way, after once we wrap up, make sure you visit the back area. The website that she talked about has all of this information and a whole lot more solutions, detox protocols, etc. So it takes work to put ourselves back into a healthier condition. It takes work, y'all. This is not going to be easy, but you have answers, you have solutions, you have the people with the right information. So take full advantage of it, but just know it's going to take some personal work. Does that make sense? Okay, please, next question.
I read somewhere that if you have O positive blood type, you may not be susceptible to the COVID-19 vaccine or some other vaccines. Are there certain blood types that may be less susceptible?
Who would like to take that?
There may be some blood types that have their immune system works a little bit differently with viruses, but we probably more on that.
Yeah, and you see, we say things like COVID vaccine. We don't have the slightest idea what's in any of them. Nobody ever tested a single lab or batch, and there are millions of doses of, high, medium, low dose. It was a clinical trial. We just simply don't know. No, there's no blood type that fits all the contaminants that Christina showed you for, like aluminum or any of that. No, there's no blood type that can stop, Ebola or any of these things, but nutrition can, through nutrients and getting your cells, particularly your liver functioning. We're all dying of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. That's our problem. We need fat, and meat, cow. It's that in your brain. We're eating, a credit card full of plastic or drinking that every day. So we really got to think about what our air, our water, our soil. Our soil is dead. So I don't know about blood types, but I know about microorganisms and fermentation, and we need them in our gut in order to metabolize things and nutrify and develop that immunity. Those cytokine and chemokines. That's what you do. Your immune cells send out. We're not creating healthy blood cells because we're inflamed all the time.
Thank you for the answer, Judy. And just so you know, to answer an additional side of that, she hit at the very end as well, the inflammation. which is caused by so many different things, is what has to be addressed and resolved. This is why we do have, I'm plugging this because that's the point of why it was created, is the anti-inflammatory components in intellectual power, in the different spike detox protocols, etc. You have to get the inflammation down in order for the body to repair itself. The cells have to be repaired, the body has to detox, heavy metals have to be detoxed, etc. So there are different methods, but I heard about that as it pertains to the O positive blood type, and I never found anything, just as Judy was saying, I never found anything that substantiated that. Just the overall answer to that question.
If I could add something to that.
Oh, yes, please.
I don't know anything about blood types either as it relates to COVID, but there are genetic differences that are significant.
Speak louder.
The viral leak out of Fort Detrick that Judy talked about earlier was the virus that ended up in Wuhan, China in 2019 and 2020. The Chinese reverse engineered that virus and sent it back to Europe and America. And they reverse engineered it in such a way that it genetically affected people with the Neanderthal gene more than people who did not have that gene. So then when you look at the mortality rates, the mortality rate from COVID in China in 2020 was about 7%. By the time it got to Spain and England and New York and the Western world, the mortality rate was close to 10%, in certain places higher than that. And so I think that speaks to the genetic differences that exist among people that have been exploited by those who are carrying out a depopulation agenda. And so we should be aware of those differences and where we fit in that, so that we know whether our risk is relatively more or less, than others.
Yes, sir.
So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you very much. And to reflect and complement what he just said, Dr. Judy mentioned the genetic component, as well as Dr. Christina, as it pertains to the MMR vaccine. When it comes to Black boys taking it, and them having a higher likelihood, 236%, some side of the study say 336% more than Caucasian boys, where they are highly inclined to being on the autism spectrum, more than white boys. They knew this, they knew that way back in 2004, they refused to reveal the data. And Dr. William Thompson said himself, quote, if we would have revealed this information at least 10 years earlier, we could have prevented at least, I believe, was it 300?
At the time it was 200,000, that was like 10 years ago that
Yes,
said that.
at the time, at least 200,000 Black boys from having autism. So they knew, and they kept it going because they saw the genetic difference. Some say they talk about the testosterone difference in Black boys. They talk about the estrogen side that helps protect girls, hence the lower, diagnosis. It's a lot of science, y'all, but the fact is genetics are a part of it. That's the point. So thank you, all of you. Next question.
My name is Jane Kendrick. I'm a member of the community, and I had a statement in it.
Yes, ma'am.
The first statement is, I really appreciate each and every one of you put this segment together. Can you hear me now? This one? Okay. My name is Jane Kendrick. I live in this community, and I really wanted to express my thanks to each and every one of you that came together to make this possible, because none of us here are crazy, and we already felt that this was true, and this just proves true to what we were thinking. I work for Compton Unified, and I work in the Department of Special Education, and that just means that I work with babies with unique disabilities. They're between the ages of 2 and 4. You have no idea how many Black and brown babies I see every day with their parents who have no idea why they are autistic or with a speech delay. And it's just terrifying, and people can be so uneducated. We have many parents that come in, they just left the doctor. The doctor has given the baby 6 shots. 6 shots, a baby. Now I'm telling you, I'm working between the ages of 2 and 4. So thank you for this. And my question was to you was that when COVID first came out, my husband and I thought we did the research. So we researched different epidemiologists to see what their feedback was regarding the Pfizer vaccine. So between the three, we thought the Pfizer vaccine was the safest. And two people came before me and they kind of asked the same question. So now that we have taken that shot, which is the only one that we did take, what is necessary to make sure that we remove the aluminum and all of that from our system? And also, why were there so many people that were asymptomatic and others were not?
So I'm assuming you mean asymptomatic to the vaccine. Yeah, when they pulled out, they had a lot of. So when people tested it, what they found was 3 years. The more the lot actually had something in it, the more diligent. So if it actually worked, okay, if there was nothing in there, good luck. And I know in some areas, placebo, that when they gave them, like the students lined up and they had shots, and I have some people in New York that said they're practicing in New York as a functional doctor, they have thousands of people that got it, they're all fine. So we know that huge batches now that they had the reaction. As far as, so when it first came out, I thought the Pfizer might be the safest because it's a lower dose and it wasn't causing my, just like AstraZeneca. However, now we know that it was contaminated with a plasmid that will replicate not only inside your bacteria, but it will get localized in the nucleus of your gut cells where it will cause it. It does not make me happy to tell you. Did you get one that has that in there? I have no idea. How many of you contained it? We have no idea. Nobody's looking, but we know it's there. The government actually came out with a paper that they had a high school student publish to say, yeah. So the gut is ground central. If you can find this crap in the gut, you can prevent it from going into your body. Where it already is into your body, we know it. I'm going to present this data tomorrow, that it stays in some cells for 2 to 3 years. And so, and then they're making spike proteins inflammatory. And again, it's complicated. It's hard to send it in. That is central. Intellectual power has something called glucoided in there. They can really bind crap and spike proteins, whatnot. But you need these polyphenols from the plant. Bind the spike protein to induce the cell to die and release it and bind. So it's a complicated process, but it's on my website. Also, I'll talk about it.
Another point I could make, according to Dr. Michael Yeardon, who was the senior vice president for Pfizer in the UK, he said that these COVID vaccines were developed with time release mechanisms. So in addition to the fact that there's a lot of variability in the lots, there's a time release mechanism so that he indicated that, for example, the liver damage caused by the COVID shot can be timed to occur at 9 months or 12 months after the shot was given. And other tissue injuries can also be timed in that way. So you could have a false sense of security that I got the shot and nothing happened to me, but don't be so quick to take that point of view.
Mm-hmm. So just to clarify on that, and her question was for those who took the Pfizer shot, basically, is there a way to detox from it? Is it better than those who took AstraZeneca, et cetera? Just in all transparency, for those of you who are comfortable with raising your hand, if you are not comfortable, please do not raise your hand. This is not a mandate. We ain't gonna force you to do anything. How many of you took the Pfizer shot? If you are comfortable with raising your hand, okay. How many of you took AstraZeneca? Okay, how many of you took Johnson & Johnson? Okay, so the data dealing with Pfizer in Texas, they attempted to prevent the data from being released for 75 years. How many of you knew that? Raise your hand. They went to court and attempted to push for this data to be hidden and withheld from the public for 75 years, talking about the trial data from Pfizer, all the stuff that we were saying was happening, from myocarditis to pericarditis to Bell's palsy to the cancer circumstances to the abortions, spontaneous abortions from the participants, some of them. All of this was in the data. They knew it all, and they hid it. The judge said, no, you are not going to be able to hide this data for no 75 years. You have to release it within the next 6 to 9 months, which is over 400,000 pages. So the data is not just on the front page, a few, bullet points. Here it is. Yeah, okay, it does this, it does this. No, they bury it under so much scientific terminology that you need people who know this information to give it to you. So to answer that question that she was asking, and for those who want to know as far as detoxing possibilities, it is not just as simple as taking something and that's it. All right, this is the raw truth about it. Are there things that you can take that can help? Dr. Christina Parks is going to talk about that more in detail as it pertains to intellectual power, some other things, other techniques. Fasting, of course, we all know, of course, fasting is definitely phenomenal for overall wellness. But just know it is not just as easy as taking something like they gave you something. Do you hear me? So again, y'all came here to get the real truth, and I wanted to just give you that part. There are solutions, but your nutrition, your exercise, the changing of your lifestyle is going to all help with speeding up the progress as it pertains to getting rid of what they injected into.
One of the things that I say that I need to get the message out. I know some of the healthies fast 3 days a month. They only eat one meal a day. Very guess what? Still hypertensive. Still having problems. We are under. I'm not here as a scientist. I'm here as a warrior. This is a war. How healthy you are. And so that means people who are doing all right still struggle. That means that is our top priority. Your health is much prevent thyroid and recover from thyroid. So we all have a threshold that it might be the next time you get COVID. The next doctor talks you into a tetanus booster. It might be a car accident. It could be anything that last trigger that causes your system to spiral. And so one of the hardest messages I get across is like, $50 a month. How much is it going to cost you if you can't afford?
Come on.
Come on. So that is the message. When they actually question all these diagnostics, you get your blood draw, they change the baseline. Everyone was so hyper. This spike protein, this is a bioweapon. All of this happens to one degree or another.
Absolutely.
It's serious shit.
It is. It is. And I'm going to take this moment while we get the next question ready to introduce our fourth panelist, another doctor. As they said, you need doctors. Are you a doctor? Well, we have doctors. And this sister here is none other than the wonderful Dr. Rachel Ross. Give her a round of applause as she comes. Boy, if you knew the weight of the resumes on this panel, don't look down just because you're in Compton. Don't think all real scientists wouldn't show up to the hood. No, they're here. Do y'all hear me? Yes, sir. They here. Give them a round of applause. Come on. You know what you're feeling. Come on. These are courageous people. Brother Rizza Islam don't hang out with punks anyway. So these are those who I truly admire because of what they do in their respective fields, and they stand on truth. Dr. Rachel Ross was one of those who during the time, she wasn't the only, was plenty of doctors who were under attack. Raise your hand if you know doctors, medical professionals, nurses, who during the time when they said, look, you better give the patients this shot or you lose your job. Raise your hand if you know teachers, anybody, right? Well, this is one of those individuals who said, no, I can't do it. After finding out the data, and by the way, all these doctors have been rehired all over the country because they were right. So she happens to be one of those. I just wanted to let all of you know so you know the pedigree and the level of integrity of each one of these individuals so you know you can trust the data and the people that are giving it to you. So, brother, please Give us your question to this panel.
Hi, my name is James, coming from Arizona. First, I just want to salute you for what you've been doing for the community,
My brother, yes,
your
sir.
product, and this event. Definitely appreciate you. My question is, with the chemtrails, like, what's up with that? What are they putting in the air? And, you know, is there anything that we can combat that?
Beautiful question. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll take that question. On a daily basis, where I live outside of Washington, D.C., I do a spectral analysis of the sky every day so that I know whether I can go outside or not. Now, obviously, on the days where you see visible chemtrails, then those are the days where the danger is increased. To answer your question, what do the chemtrails contain? All of them contain aluminum, all of them contain barium.
Strontium.
All of them don't contain strontium. But the majority of the chemtrails that you see since the wildfires here on the West Coast, the chemtrails now contain radioactive elements. The reality of it is that in 2011, there was a nuclear accident in Fukushima where 3 nuclear reactors melted through. And since that time, radioactive isotopes have been crossing the Pacific and landing on the shores of North America, in Canada, the United States, Mexico. The marine layer that you see in the morning contains those radioactive elements, those isotopes. That marine layer moisture gets absorbed by plant life. So all of the trees in California and the west coast of the United States and all up into Canada are full of radioactive isotopes, full of aluminum. Aluminum does a lot of things. One of the things that you should know is it's explosive. It's an accelerant. So some of the wildfires that you had this year, the trees didn't catch on fire, they literally exploded. So what's in the chemtrails now includes all of those radioactive elements. Now, on occasion, maybe 25% of the time, the chemtrails, at least where I live, also contain what I call the COVID-19 agent. I don't call it a virus because no one ever showed me that it actually was a virus. I'm not quite sure what it is. It's a weapon, but the actual nature of it is unclear. But in the chemtrails, whatever that COVID-19 agent is, it's there. The spike protein is there. The lipid nanoparticles are there. And not in every instance, but during the course of a month, you may find anything from influenza, mold spores, parasites, monkeypox. I'm trying to think of some of the things that I have. And if you go to my Telegram channel, Dr. Alim on Telegram, you can see those reports that I do on a daily basis. And you can just scroll through it and see on a daily basis the degree of poisoning that is being carried out against the civilian population of the United States. And so Dr. Parks' term that we are under attack could not be more accurate. And we need to understand that these planes that are flying and spraying these toxins, these are U.S. government planes. They are being flown by DARPA and financed by the Pentagon, by the CIA. And so all of us need to understand that your government, which is participating in genocide in Palestine and other parts of the world, is also guilty of another crime that's called democide. Democide is the crime of a government murdering its own population. So that is what's taking place in the United States of America. Your government is murdering you, and they're doing it in every conceivable way. Not just the chemtrails, but the food chain being contaminated, all of the environmental things that are being done to decrease the chances of survival of the population. So let me just conclude, and I'm going to talk about this more tomorrow. The overarching agenda is called depopulation. If you want to do a little research, look up the Deagle report. The Deagle report is spelled D-E-A-G-L-E. The Deagle report says that the American population of the United States will be reduced down to 69 million from its current 337 million, which means that more than 200 million Americans must be killed in order to reach the depopulation goal. Similar goals have been set for other countries around the world. The depopulation goal for the UK, for example, is to reduce the population of England from 70 million down to 16 million, and so on and so forth around the world. The idea is to reduce the world's population from nearly 8 billion down to less than 1 billion. And so all of the means and methods of carrying out mass casualties are being used. And the chemtrails, the vaccine campaign, the adulteration of the food chain, and all of the rest of it, these are just different aspects of the same war, which is to depopulate planet Earth to make room for who's coming next.
I would, wow, there is something whereby it is high silicon water. And that one drink of water, but not as but in one. And I know that the aluminum is probably in the contrast because I did a Fiji water cleanse, and a lot of people feel really tired, put out of themselves. They actually experience you don't want to do this project, but if you do that for a month, a lot of times you're tired. Body. Then I did it later, the same happened. Well, where did all the aluminum? And so my hunch is that we are all aluminum toxic. I believe personally that the aluminum in your system is activating these viruses. And many viruses, including herpes, have this NF-kappa constant. So whether you have a car accident or you have aluminum, it's going to activate viruses. And so when you pull viruses out, you may find you have a cold sore, you have a herpes virus, whatever. But when you get all that aluminum out, you're probably going to have less after. If you're looking for something for herpes virus, I have known people that have said olive very effective. So that can be something.
Thank you for all of those.
Yes, thank you.
It's a scientist now, so we'll do our best to make it short.
You know what, I did want to add to that, particularly talking about aluminum, that so much of us are aluminum toxic because of our families. You go to the barbecue, what does everybody put in the barbecue in? Disposable aluminum pans.
I do that every day.
Then we're wrapping up in aluminum foil, and then we're putting them in the refrigerator, and we're not realizing is that every time that aluminum touches your food, the food leaches, the aluminum leaches into the food, and then you're eating it. And so we're contributing to our own aluminum neurotoxicity. So really, the deodorant, look at your deodorant, it's got aluminum in it. So much of what we do on a daily basis is what's really, really, really contributing to, okay, we can't control a lot of what's happening around us. We gotta go outside, we gotta go to work. The air is terrible. But what we can control is what's happening in houses. So on us to educate our families. Listen, we cannot put that aluminum foil in the toaster. We cannot put it in the oven. We don't have to use those cheap disposable pans this summer for all the barbecues. So really, you want to start there with a lot of this. You want to look at your house, your family's house, your granny's house, and see what all the things, and try to get them to get rid of it. You want hell and brimstone. Try to tell your auntie and your mama and them to get rid of the aluminum, and it's not happening. But when we go over there and we eat the food, that aluminum is coming with us. So we have to start having these conversations within our own communities and our own families about how we're contributing to it.
Thank you. That right there is, no more fried fish in that aluminum. Y'all know what I'm talking. Don't come on now. Right down the street, you know what I'm talking about. Tell them to switch it up. All right, put something else in there, because that is a very, very, very serious fact. And those are all different components and different layers as to what's going on. So our next question, my brother.
Good evening. My name is Jonathan Eli. I am concerned about a whole bunch of stuff you guys brought up tonight, but I'm going to try to condense it. I am first and foremost, I am a city LA sanitation worker working in wastewater. I got exposed to COVID when I got flashed trying to dump the tank into the city sewer, and I couldn't get the clamp on fast enough, and it just covered. All right, it just covered me. So they made us, get you either had to, back then, it was 2 years ago, you either had to get the shot or you were out of there. So there was a whole bunch of people that refused to take the shot, and there's us, mostly, the Black and Latinos who took the shot, and we're here. But just hearing all this stuff tonight, about the side effects of the Pfizer, because that's the one I particularly got, and I have a twin brother, and he got the other two, a mixture, of
J&J and AstraZeneca.
Yeah, he got the mixture. So, but when I came down with COVID, this thing really kicked my ass. All right, I'm mad at the city of Los Angeles that made us, their decision as far as going through this, and the guys that they forced out that didn't take the shot, they went to court and they sued them. They got their jobs back, but they're still in litigation as far as the back pay and all this other stuff. So you got the gears in my head really going, because I feel like I'm a victim now, and I don't know what type of lawyer is out there that's going to see this and contact me, because I know how the universe works, because I'm positive and I bring positive things to me. But I feel like, somebody has to answer to the stuff that I have went to and others like that.
That's right.
Secondly, I utilize public transportation, and I'm all over Los Angeles. I have seen people with open sores on the bus and on the train and stuff like that. It feels like a Ebola outbreak is here, and nobody is talking about it. And, MacArthur Park over there, it's like, open sores on these people's body, and it's like everybody's looking the opposite direction. And I'm like, ew. The bus drivers, thank God that they have these barriers, but I think, about the citizens that utilize public transportation, and we have to sit with these people, and we can't press a button that the health department comes and takes these people to get treatment or something.
You want to know the solution? What's the solution out of that?
It's crazy. I feel like we're in a giant petri dish right here in Los Angeles. And like I said, me working in sanitation, I've seen it all. But dealing with the wastewater, because they do a report of an analyst of what's in the water that they see, and it's a lot of drugs and stuff like that, which indicate what's going on in the population. But when it comes down to this COVID and all this other stuff, everybody's shh, So I want some solution. What I can do as a private citizen to address when I see somebody with open sores all over their legs and their body. It's crazy.
Yes,
you
sir.
know? And I'm using public transportation.
Yes, sir. That's a good question.
Let's be clear. Every open sore isn't contagious. Every person with weeping skin isn't something to be fearful of. You know, the best thing to do in those situations is to have a little empathy and be like, wow, that sucks for them. And then, to just make sure that you're doing your best job to protect yourself in those situations.
Anyone else like to address?
Look at chlorine dioxide, that they have stuff to spray on your skin, yellow sores. So there's a brand called Zoot and some other things here locally. Chlorine dioxide, that you can spray it on your skin. Also, you can spray essential oils with silver and a company named 247. There's a lot you can do to protect yourself. But a real simple one for those skin sores, chlorine dioxide is not expensive.
I would say there are, and I have this on my website as well, a lot of nasal sprays that have iodine, when you do any cost or saline, a couple drops of iodine, or the food grade hydrogen peroxide. Anything is going to get in through your respiratory system. If your skin is not compromised, then they're probably not going to spread it. Again, I would echo what Dr. Watts said, in terms of it could be a drug. We know that there are certain drugs that actually can cause you to pick skin, cause sores, and they may be compromised. So if they're being compromised, that doesn't mean you are. It doesn't mean you're necessarily going to get what they have. But, and this is something that could have stop COVID in its tracks, if we are using these nasal sprays that prevent transmission, that kill bacteria, that kill viruses, right? It's just tiny. So because we are very much more proactive, the airport, with iodine, you get home from the grocery store, with many products that we got iodine. I do that every day. Those kind of things can really help you. And even take a shower. I mean, it's not always really high tech. You just have to change your habits, because as I said, we are kind of looking
If I could chime in a little bit, I think what I gathered from the brother's question was he wasn't really asking so much how do you treat open sores. He was indicating there's a condition in the society that is destroying the health of people. Now, according to Joe Biden, when he was president, he was able to get 227 million Americans to receive the jab. He himself received the jab and 6 boosters along with Kamala Harris. And you saw what happened to them and their mental deterioration.
Right after. Y'all heard that? Joe took the shots and went down like this.
But the same mental and physical deterioration that was so evident with Mr. Biden and Ms. Harris, that also affects the 227 other million Americans that also got the shot. If I saw somebody with open sores and I know that they got the vaccine, I would wonder whether I'm dealing with someone who has vaccine induced acquired immune deficiency syndrome.
Come on.
In other words, the COVID shot causes AIDS. In Australia, they had to ban the use of HIV testing because everybody that got the COVID shot in Australia tested positive for HIV. Now, of course, the same thing is true in America. The 227 million Americans that got the shot, if you got an HIV test, you would test positive for HIV, which means that you have immune deficiency. The studies show that after receiving the COVID jab, you lose 5% of your immune power per week. So that means within 1 year's time after receiving the COVID shot, you are in an advanced stage of immune deficiency. So I used to treat HIV patients. They had skin lesions, Kaposi's sarcoma, all kinds of things. And so I'm beginning to see those same manifestations in the general population. because these are people who are walking around with vaccine-induced acquired immune deficiency syndrome. And of course, there's another aspect to it, vaccine-enhanced disease. So if you already were a diabetic, if you already had kidney disease, if you already had heart disease, then the vaccine shot will enhance that disease state. Not to mention, of course, the unknown previously epidemic of what is called turbo cancer. I never remember reading about turbo cancer in medical school. But we're having something called turbo cancer that is destroying millions and millions of lives. And so what I'm saying is that we are looking at 10,000 different manifestations of the bioweapon that has been deployed against the American population. And
Yes, sir.
it is not enough to just address all of the 10,000 different manifestations and symptoms. You have to go to the root cause. And the root cause is the U.S. military industrial complex that has manufactured. See, when Obama overthrew the government in Ukraine in 2014, the CIA and the Pentagon set up 46 bioweapons laboratories in Ukraine.
That's fact.
So where do you think all of these new diseases are coming from? They were developed by your government as a part of a global depopulation agenda, and you are the intended victim. So now, once that's clear in your mentality, then what are you going to do about it?
And I just want to say one thing. According to the science, we should stop that. So we are not just collections of tissues. We are human souls, a divine spark of God. And that is why it's so damn hard to kill us.
Yeah, wait.
It really is. You know,
Get them brighter?
I'm just stuck.
No.
Because
Check with him, see if he has to angle the lights. All right. Yeah, go check with him.
you know, our bodies, no, I'm saying, and our bodies don't deal with this crap. But we're here to tell you that it's real and we need to try to be prioritize it and be proactive. But we're also here to say that the fact that we're here at all and that some of us here in modern development is just a testament to.
That's a fact. Go ahead, give it up for that. So the biggest thing is you have to remember that, number one, have a belief in God, the Most High, Allah, whatever you call, the Supreme Being, and also have a belief in yourself to build yourself, your nutrition. You have to fuel the body with what it needs so that it can continue to fight. The only reason why we're still alive overall when it comes to our physiology is because our immune system is working, fighting off diseases, viruses every single day. Correct me if I'm wrong, scientists. Yes, okay, thank you. This is how this goes. So don't get so caught up in how heavy the information is. Be mindful that you are battling against this and your body is working. That's why you're in this building right now, able to at least hear this information, walk, talk, etc. Your body is working. Continue to give it what it needs, and God willing, it will continue to fight for you. Another thing I'm going to mention here really quick, Dr. Alim, what happened between you and Anthony Fauci?
Well, not too much, really. This is going back to history during the HIV era, and I was blessed to, along with Dr. Barbara Justice and others, do some clinical research showing the value of alpha interferon in the treatment of HIV disease. And of course, we did a little clinical trial, and then we got the endorsement of the National Medical Association, who recommended that NIH sponsor a clinical trial investigating the use of alpha interferon. Well, of course, then we ran into the opposition of Anthony Fauci and NIH. So there was a great debate that took place in October over in it was that
I was 2 years old.
It was an all-day scientific debate, and at the end of the day, our arguments prevailed against Fauci because he found a paper that he had written
AZT.
It's a treatment for HIV. And so when we put that paper on the table, then that got him up all the way. He had to approve the funding to do the NIH clinical trials without interference.
Wow.
But that didn't take place until 1996. And there's a whole lot of other stories that go along with that, but that's basically it. It was the debate where we showed that Anthony Fauci he's not the scientific giant that the media makes him out to be. As a matter of fact, he's pretty much a weakling.
Come on now. Come on now. Y'all better clap for that now. Come on. We Fauci been taking L's for a long time. He has been losing for a long time. But see, how many of you knew about that? Raise your hand. For those of you who know Dr. See, now see y'all cheating because a few y'all know. But the rest of you didn't know about that, nor Dr. Judy Mikovits and the data dealing with Fauci. So he has been actively funded and supported and sponsored to continue to do what he's been doing. And multiple people, these are two of them who have been pushing to expose certain circumstances dealing with viruses and potential cures or remedies for certain things, have been either gagged, ordered, or as she said, kidnapped with her, or smeared in the media, etc. So I'm just letting y'all know, I have to ask him that because, I mean, to say you debated Fauci, and is it recorded anywhere? Of course. Of course. Mm-hmm. Well, she said we still won. Well, see, the sad thing is today in this generation, if they don't see it, to them it didn't exist. And that's the sad part. But you're here, so we're going to make sure we get all of this recorded as we're doing, and we're going to make sure it gets out to this generation so that they know that people have truly been fighting for them this whole time. So let's go to the next questions here, and I'll make sure I'll be brief so that all of you, can get your questions out.
Hi. So I have a family member who took 3 shots and started feeling sick, and now he has stage 3 cancer. So my question to you is, should he detox or just go straight into the chemo and radiation? Or can you do both at the same time?
I don't think I heard the question.
I would say it's got to do both. What does it got to do? Especially when we're talking a lot of these, like intellectual power and everything. Like sour topic, a lot of the problems that are poison.
Stage 3 cancer of what?
Truth is, we don't know. And I get calls with people with cancer stage 3, stage 4 every day. I don't have the answers. But when something's better than doing nothing, and like sometimes you may or may not be able to tell your doctor if you're on those. That's your personal relationship. But each person has a choice about what they will do. Me personally, I would just put healthy things in the body. And a lot of those things, they actually activate the body's pathways and they make your healthy cells more resistant. And they lower the inflammation caused by chemo. So, and I'll be around tomorrow if you want to come up and chat.
So tomorrow's event, raise your hand. Tomorrow's event starts at 6 a.m. It's down the street at the Dollarhide Community Center. Raise your hand. 10 a.m. I said 6? We need to get up early, y'all. That's the point. 10. Hey, look, I'm trying to be early because we started late today. 10 a.m. tomorrow. And everybody looked at me crazy like, brother, you tripping. 10 a.m. Man. So 10 a.m. tomorrow. How many of you will be there? Raise your hand if you will be there. Okay, beautiful. Make sure you tell someone tomorrow there will be full presentations. All of these, 3 of them, I know Dr. Judy will be present. 3 of these panelists will be doing full presentations. Data, same way Dr. Christina did one today. She has, all of them literally have probably thousands of slides, and they did their best to reduce them in an hour to give you this data. But they will all be doing presentations tomorrow, and we will be going over solutions that tackle things as this young sister was asking about, and many different things as well. Intellectual power happens to be a part of one of those solutions and protocols, and there are other things as well. Let's go to the next question here. My brother.
Yeah, I wanted to know that if you, my name is Mark Triplett. I'm a fan of all of you doctors. I've been watching you off and on Rizza's channel and on your own channels, keeping up with you for some years now, just to let you know. And if you took that shot, is it going to affect your DNA or your family's DNA for years to come?
Yeah.
And when it comes to the shots for the children, I work for a school district. They're always having these shot events. They're not telling anyone that if you get an MMR and a Tdap, that's 6 shots already for the most part, 6 vaccinations. They make them take 4 and 5 shots. They took 7 or 8 shots at one time. Who knows if they're going to go home, go into a fever, wake up, and they can't even see. What do you think?
I have the website that you can send people the link. One of the things that I recommend is people just ask questions. You know, did you know that there were 2 brands of decaf? So you don't have to be like, vaccines are going to kill your kid, right? You can be like, did you know that there are 2 manufacturers of that and one has twice as much aluminum? And they're like, I didn't know the aluminum was in there. But just ask questions that maybe make them think a little bit. Your job is to plant the seed.
And I'll mention that website has so much information, including videos that answer what you were asking about and a whole lot more, especially not only for COVID vaccines, but others as well as for parents. Parents and the childhood vaccine schedule. If you are an expecting parent, a current parent with a child, all these different circumstances, it has a lot of information that goes over all of this. So please utilize that. We're going to wrap up after these few questions in about 5 minutes. We're going to wrap up to where you can all go to these tables here to get the data, get the cards, information, supplements, whatever you need, so that we can make sure you have all of that.
First, I'd like to thank all of the panelists for coming. It's great to know that you all are spreading Rizza, the job that you've done and been doing. I'm the CEO of a company. It's called Nature's V. We are the only Black immunotherapy company in the world. We are the only Black producer of interferon alpha in the world that you can buy directly, which they're speaking of, which is the interferon alpha that Dr. Alim used to cure HIV in 1995. It has many purposes. Dr. Judy Mikovits can tell you if you want something that's non-inflammatory, interferon. If you want to deal with cancer and creating NK cells, so it's an exogenous source of interferon to help it. This product has many benefits. Over the last 7 years, we cured many people of COVID. We cured many people of HSV. Dr. Alim, 30 years ago, cured 10 people with this product of HIV.
That's not true.
And many other things. So we have a source that's an answer. We're here for you if you need it. The product is available online, free for anybody to buy it in the whole world.
No, I never used that product. He's lying. He's lying.
The man who made
right
it
now.
has a 35-year history
right now.
of this product. Dr. Alim was the one who announced this product at the Million Man March when he announced the first person to be cured of HIV. That person was using this product. That man cured HIV in 1995.
No, he's lying.
With the
That man is lying right now.
I want to ask Dr. Alim this question though, because when he said what he said, it popped up in my head. Did you notice the increase of the HIV numbers here over the last year that they've been putting out? And do you directly think that's related to what you said?
Have I noticed that? No, I haven't. I haven't paid attention to it.
Okay, well, in North Carolina, some of you saw on the internet that there's extreme amounts of HIV among Black women. In Houston, it was an extraordinary amount of HIV for this year among Black women. Maybe it's associated to the jab, maybe it's not, but it does exist. We have an answer that's available. If you would like to get it, it's at natures-v.com. It's available to everybody. Your 6-month-old can take it, and your 80-month-old can take it. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, my brother. Solutions with a long track record when you hear about alpha interferon. Powerful. Next question. And yes, we have about 3 more minutes, so we'll make sure to get these questions answered. Everybody make sure to condense them as quickly as possible.
Okay, my name is Robert Young. I want to thank everybody up there, first of all, and thank you. You always promise, everything you promised us is always coming forward.
Sir.
So my question was, it was pretty much about, like, her question. She said she had somebody that had cancer in her family. So everybody around me has been getting cancer. So I got people that have brain cancer, plasmacytoma in the spine, which affects the nerve, and then colon cancer. What would you suggest, like, what would you say to those people besides just the, normal healing? What would you give to that person? And also, I heard about methimazole, which is supposed to pass through the brain barrier more.
So, yes, Dr. William Magnus, a Canadian doctor, has been health coaching people through the use of ivermectin, very, very high dose ivermectin and methimazole. There's a lot of mechanistic science, not BS, it's absolutely science. So that's the way to go. You don't have much to lose. You can find William Magnus if you search him on the internet, and you can contact him through email. He just is going to help coach you through using those. But you have to realize this is, the immune system has been shut down, the immune system, so you've got to remodulate the immune system. Ivermectin is an immune modulator, but you've got to restore proper communication in the body. So it's a whole body thing. So it's always good to detox. It's always, you've got to restore communication in the body. And that is also dealing with your own psychological and emotional trauma too. So we are at war, and it's unfortunate that we have to face this. But the biggest problem that I find is that people are not used to taking control of their health, and they can't do it fast enough. And so that's why I want all of us to take that step now, and so that maybe we don't progress to that point, or even if we do, we can still walk it back, because cancer doesn't necessarily need to be a death sentence, but most people don't have the tools to deal with it at all because they haven't taken control of their health. But I would say that is definitely a way to go, ivermectin, methimazole, and fasting. All cancers need sugar and glucose and L-glutamine, so fasting is also a great way to that.
Okay, the other second part was kind of different, but I just got a note when I was on my way here. My nephew, he's never been vaccinated as far as I know. I just got a note for him to go to school. And it's in California, so it's pretty difficult to figure out how to allow him to still go to school, but not get vaccinated. My sister passed, so she didn't want that, so I'm trying to not give it to him.
I do immunizations, solving oral strategies, oral nasal strategies, and stand that kind of thing.
Really.
All right. Y'all got that right. And that was some black stuff. That was nice. She has a solution, so make sure we're going to get her contact information as far as the email and all of that, because she does do that. Okay, that was real smooth what just took place. All right, that was like...
The hardest part about navigating that is having the right paperwork for your school so that your kids can get, into school and through school. And what I found is, when things went awry here and we moved to Tennessee, it was very interesting. You go, all they do, you go to the health department, you present your paperwork, it says they've had this, and they put it in the system and it's in there. So I think what you have to do is when you have children involved and you need the paperwork, you have to get really creative about it and not just stay so hyper-focused on what you can do here in California. There are some physicians here that will do homeopathic vaccinations, and their paperwork looks very similar, but it's really a paperwork issue. If you have family members in other states and you're going to and you're going to visit them, this is a perfect opportunity to get an official document of your shots there and bring back.
Okay, so they're speaking the truth, because let's make it very clear. During the whole pandemic, all of those who were rich were printing out COVID vaccine cards and spreading them out.
That's right.
Now, when it came down to the hood, that's when they said, we gotta stop this. We gotta stop it now. But they were doing that. Okay, medical professionals are doing it for family, like people, hey, Rizza, you got that connect, brother? I need that shot pass with the stamps on it. People were doing this all over the place, and I'm talking about those with the degrees, the licenses. The majority of staff at the CDC, from my understanding, one study showed the majority of them did not take that COVID shot, at least the first dose. So it is very real. So everything that they're saying here, I don't want anybody leaving saying, a doctor told me to use Photoshop. No, the fact is they were doing it. They were all doing it. Okay, just want to be real. Last 4 questions here.
So my question is, why were cigarette smokers immune to the COVID-19, to catching COVID-19?
Good question.
I don't know all the details of it, but it has to do with the nicotinic receptor. I don't know, and basically it was blocking some entry, and I think it was probably acting through some other mechanisms. But people who are vaccinated or worked with people, like the autopsies, have found some relief in using nicotine patches. So it actually was binding to certain receptors and preventing damage. You know, it still needs to be better studied, but that was very, very helpful.
Do not go out and get cigarettes, please. I gotta say it right there. But you heard it, but please don't do that. That is not the answer.
That would be honest.
Right. But if that did, that was a fact. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Keisha, and I'm a healthcare worker. I work in the Department of Radiology. Excuse me. And part of my job is I look at, I upload CTs, MRIs, mammograms. And what I came across was a lot of young women, as young as 26 years old, were stage 3 and 4 breast cancer. And just, I really don't want to say anything, but I'll put it out there. Just a few months ago, I was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer. And I'm under 50 years old. And I'm like trying to figure out like what caused this. Like I'm, healthy, I work out, I try to keep healthy as I can. So, and I know you were just telling the other lady about what should she do as far as this the cancer treatment. I started treatment, but before I started the treatment, I did soursop, sea moss, and things like that, right? As I'm going through the treatment, I was talking to different women because there's so many African American women my age and younger who are in the treatments. I'm gonna wrap it up. I'm sorry. What I realized as we were talking is that most of us were using secret deodorant. And my question is the deodorant causing most women to develop this breast cancer?
Well, deodorant is a problem because it blocks your lymph and it prevents circulation. So I doubt it's secret. It could be, who knows. But I believe in Black women is the endocrine disruptor. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow.
Yes.
It's causing a huge increase in estrogen. It's causing dysregulation. Like I said, it has to communicate. And you've got all these foreign molecules that are acting like your hormones in these hormonal tissues. So I'm going to talk about that. I'm also going to talk about how these polyphenols actually can kind of reverse that. Now, is it going to reverse your cancer once you have it? I don't know. But, it's going to help, right? So we're going to talk about what's going on there tomorrow. So you definitely want to be there for that.
Any sisters who know anyone with fibroids, endometriosis, polycystic ovarian syndrome, PCOS, and the like, all those different things, be there tomorrow. He is going to go over this in detail as well as solutions and methods. Be there tomorrow. And other things as well, prostate issues for the brothers, low testosterone, weak sperm motility, all these different things as well, hormonal imbalance, you name it. We're going to cover a lot of this tomorrow in detail as well as solutions. Last 2 questions here.
First off, thank all y'all for all this information, and Rizza Islam, man, thank you for educating me, bro, and my family. But my question is, me and my wife, we expecting a new baby girl, 45 days. And my question is,
that's right.
And thank y'all.
Bringing on that life, that's what I'm talking about. Yes, sir.
Thank you. My question is, well, I don't know how true it is. Our first child, we vaccinated our first child when she was born. This time, since we've been getting educated on all these vaccines and what's going on in the world, we don't want to vaccinate our new baby. So I don't know how true it is. It's I heard the hospitals do like threat tactics or something like that? Like,
Absolutely.
If you don't get your child vaccinated, they're gonna call CPS or something like that. How can we opt out? How will we be able to not vaccinate our child?
While you're there, the hospital just continue to say, you know what? Our doctor's going to vaccinate our baby when we leave, so we don't need any here. And the reason that you take that posture, as opposed to trying to get into a debate with them about how bad they are and all of that, is that they will label you and target you and call DCFS and all that stuff. So what you really want to do is just be calm with it, go in there, let them know, sign off and say, we're not getting any vaccines here, we're doing it in the doctor's office with our pastor there, make it sound good,
How do you say it though? Like, how would I like word that? Like,
just like that.
Just go in and be very direct, saying, we don't, we have no intention of getting vaccines while we're here. We're going to do that with our personal physician when we get out. And then, like, say your wife has to have a C-section or something happens or the baby is in the NICU, you still have those same conversations. You repeat it to the NICU nurses, you tell the doctor, they'll give you paper to sign off as long as they don't detect that you're trying to go against their system of what they want you to do. So. And don't leave the baby alone. We gave birth over at Santa Monica in a hospital in Santa Monica, and really, honestly, one of us stayed out with the baby. Like it was a whole thing. But you don't let on to them that that's what you're doing, particularly when you're
real quick.
Back.
Okay, so I know. Okay, about all the vaccines, but I'm just saying. One last thing, like. With our first child, they had like squirt something in her eye.
Vitamin K.
Does the baby need that?
No, she doesn't need that, but you gotta pick your battles, right? If you tell them we don't need, we don't need the eye ointment, if you tell them we don't need anything, now they're starting to, you're becoming a problem to them. So what we really want to do is try to just float into their system, tell them, say, no, you know what, I don't think we need that. The mom doesn't have any infections that we're really worried about, so we don't really need that. So you can go in and tell them you don't want anything, and then gingerly, as they're starting to approach, say, yeah, you know what, I don't think we need that, but you gotta stay with the kid. And what you want to do is, a lot of hospitals now let you take your baby, sleep with the baby, and keep the baby with you. You want to fight for that as much as possible, and fight for release.
Yes.
As soon as the baby's here, you just want to try to say, when can we go home? When can we go home? When can we go home? And just don't bump the system.
So we have one more question. Thank you for that answer, Dr. Ross. And I'll mention this. This is where the conversation of in-home birthing comes into the picture. You have to be mindful. Y'all should be clapping for that. Y'all nervous? Y'all scared?
Anyway.
It's your baby. See, the reaction that I just received was it shows a level of indoctrination, because home birthing was king and queen. It was the royal way of birthing. And they attacked that to the benefit of the medical system. So don't misunderstand. Your body knows exactly what to do. The seed knows, the egg knows. You were given this from God, the Creator. So they don't know more about your body than you do. Make it very clear. And they all say the same thing, but I just make that very clear. Tomorrow, we have a midwife who will be y'all can clap for that too. Why y'all so scared? We have a midwife who will be presenting tomorrow on basically some of the history, basic information dealing with doulas, midwifery, etc., to give you some of the education on how to do it, what does it mean, etc. She's in this room. I'm not going to point her out because she's very nervous. But she's here. But she will be doing that tomorrow. So please be there tomorrow. And we have one more question, and we're going to have or two questions, and we're going to end here so that you can all go to the back and pictures and everything else.
My name is Leslie. Thank you all for being here. I have two questions. First question, how true is it that Bill Gates, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and Microsoft have worked together to put nanotechnology in beverages? How true is this information? If you know anything, I would like to know. And obviously, don't drink Coca-Cola, but is there any paperwork, things we can do to protest, things of that nature, if you know anything about the topic?
Did you hear the question, everyone?
I didn't hear the question.
Right.
Like, the nanoparticles and everything. There's a lot, they put in a lot of confusion in the system. And they're trying to kill us every other way. We don't even need to think
Yeah.
Okay. Next question. Yes,
Second
ma'am.
question. Are you familiar with sound healing? And how would an everyday person use sound to heal their body?
Beautiful question. Beautiful. Sound therapy, sound healing.
You would sing.
I already do that.
Vibration.
I mean, that's what a human being is. The Holy Quran says that a human being is made of sounding clay. So you are created to make sound. And one of the problems in modern society is that everything has been commercialized, so the average person doesn't sing anymore. Back in the day, people used to sing. They used to sing together. That brought people together. That created harmony and social cohesion. That was the key to victory of the civil rights movement, because the people remembered the songs. They remembered the spirituals from the slave days, and the spiritual power in that music, in that harmony, strengthened the spirit of the civil rights fighters. And so that spirit can be resurrected again. Now, people do talk about more professional types of sound healing, music therapy and all that kind of stuff, and you can buy tuning forks, and this frequency heals your DNA, and another frequency does this, and another frequency does that. And that's all valid, but you don't have to make it that complicated. All you have to do is start singing. And if you start singing in the right frequency, with the tuning at 432 hertz, singing with the golden ratio, I mentioned the spirituals. When you look at the musical composition that represents, that is spiritual, musical, sound, sonic healing. It heals the body, it heals the soul, it heals the mind. And it's just as simple as lifting up your voice in song. Is that?
Beautiful. Beautiful question, beautiful answer. Y'all got that? Start singing. If you sound bad, sing some more. Get to singing. I have one last question to end this off. For those who took the COVID shot, is it true that insurance companies are refusing to honor the policies if people put in the claim that they believe the COVID shot caused their body damage and they're refusing?
Yes, there are stories like that. The insurance companies say that we will not pay off because you were involved in human experimentation.
Wow. Did y'all hear that? The answer is insurance companies are not honoring your claim. If you say, I believe this vaccine caused damage to my body in some way, shape, or form, they are not honoring it. Why? Because the COVID vaccine was experimental. Legally, it was. We talked about this at Mas Mariam during the plenary session. Myself was one of the presenters. Dr. Judy Mikovits was one of the presenters. Dr. Ali Muhammad, and we went over this, that they were still experimental, and because of that, they legally do not qualify to be honored. If you take it, you basically were considered a volunteer experimental host. And that's what they did not tell people. So to answer that question, yes, it is true. Okay, yeah. Well, let me leave you on a high note. Everyone stand up. So I don't want to leave you with that. I need everyone to look around, just a quick moment. Look around, see everyone who is next to you. These are people who are not afraid to find the truth and or to stand on the truth. So I want everyone to truly embrace one another as brothers and sisters, because this is a fight that we're all involved in. Continue to fight for your health. Continue to stand up, and I don't think any of you at this point are going to simply believe what they say going forward, are you? If they say, listen, take this shot or you can't go to work anymore, are you going to take it? Are you sure? Okay, because we already went through this. We have already gone through this before. So you say it now, but sincerely, if that does happen again, hence the measles scare that Dr. Judy and Dr. Christina Parks were pointing out, they are trying to ramp this up again. So just know, the next time around, you have the data, you have the information, you have solutions. Believe in God, believe in yourself, stand together, stand firm, and continue to fight against this oppression. Thank you very much, everyone who took out your time. Thank you to our panelists. For all of you, if you would like to take pictures, we're going to meet right here in the back near the banner. So if you'd like to take pictures with the panelists, if they would oblige, and also receive information, as well as get your bottle of intellectual power, we have that in the back. We have a limited amount, so please, it is first come, first serve.